Welcome to Ichiraku Ramen, and thank you for joining me for another journey into the world of shinobi. Before we begin, I want to give a huge thank you to everyone who listens, supports the channel, and enjoys these stories. We wouldn't have hit over 2,000 subscribers without you. I also want to let you know the Discord server you voted for is ready. You can suggest stories, vote on what gets narrated next, or just hang out and talk. It's free to join my way of giving back for getting us here. The link is in the description. Today's story is the final part of Uzumaki clan's rebirth. Summary. When Naruto Uzumaki rejects Jiraiya's training trip, he chooses a path no one saw coming. Uncovering his mother's hidden legacy, Naruto unlocks the rare lava and boil release bloodlines, and leaves Konoha behind to restore the fallen Uzumaki clan. His journey leads him straight into Kirigakure, where he catches the eye of Mei Terumi, the Fifth Mizukage. Bound by shared struggles and dangerous power, Mei helps Naruto master his true heritage as political turmoil grips the mist. But as feelings deepen and threats emerge, Naruto must prove he has what it takes to protect those he loves, rebuild Uzushio, and lead his clan into a new era. This is a fan-made story inspired by the world of Naruto. All characters in the original universe belong to their respective creators. This narration is created for entertainment purposes as part of a transformative storytelling experience. The story itself was written by Ramen, and full credit goes to the original author. If you would like to read the original version, the link to the story is included in the video description below. Also, if you like my content and want to keep up with future updates, hit that subscribe button and don't forget to share it with your friends. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy. Chapter 29. The Hermitage Abandoned, Uchiha's Destructive Destiny. Arc, Yuzuno Kuni, 6th Elemental Nation. Myobokuzen. Land of Toads. Jiraiya stood with the two elder toads near the quick-access pool that would allow them to reach Konoha in record time. The man, of course, would not be able to fit through, though. It was alright because he had another plan. They were just finalizing their plans before they made to leave Myobokuzen. So, we should head to Konoha first then and warn them? Fukasaku asked Jiraiya as the man shouldered his scroll and placed his sandals on his feet. The two elderly toads had left the Great Toad Sage's quarters with Jiraiya as he was preparing to leave. Because of the grave circumstances, Fukasaku had volunteered himself and Shima to accompany the Sannin to Konoha and fight. While Jiraiya did indeed plan to go to Konoha, he had a pit stop that he would have to head to first. Where they stood now, Konoha wouldn't stand a chance without a little help, and he had to settle a debt with an old friend. Not exactly, Jiraiya notified, looking down into the confused faces of both toads. I'm going to make an extra stop somewhere before I head to Konoha. I want you two to head to Konoha and warn them. If you could, it might not be a bad idea to get a messenger toad to Tsunade at the summit. It'll be better if she knows what's going on as soon as possible. The two toads looked at each other and nodded in assent to his requests. That sounds like a plan, Jiraiya-chan. If we get a messenger to the summit, we might get the other villages' support too. Shima suggested since Konoha was in the alliance, it would only be right to bring along the other Kage and their forces. Jiraiya boy, do you want Tsunade to know that you are alive in the message? Jiraiya grabbed his chin in thought before sweat dropping and furiously shaking his head negatively. The two elders smirked. I don't think that would be such a great idea. It can wait. Besides, how else will I appear as the hero if she already knows I'll be there? He chuckled nervously, not really believing the joke himself. The two toads just shook their heads in pity before Fukasaku asked the burning question on their mind. Jiraiya boy, why aren't you going to Konoha first? What is this extra stop you were talking about? You might need us with you. Jiraiya shook his head as he went through a few hand signs and smiled to the two confused elders. I'm sorry, but this is something I have to do on my own. You know what you have to do. Before they could argue further, Jiraiya teleported away back to the shinobi continent. Fukasaku scratched his head and Shima crossed her arms in frustration. The boy was still stubborn and enigmatic, even if he could be a jokester. She just hoped he would realize when the right time to arrive in Konoha was, or else they would have a lot of trouble on their hands. Shima, She turned to her husband after he called her name. You go to Konoha and warn them of the danger. I'll get the messenger toad ready and be right behind you. We can't waste a second of our time in preparing for those tailed beasts. The woman nodded and jumped into the pool of water, using the seals there to teleport her to the other pool near Konoha. Fukasaku summoned a trusty runner toad and had him deliver a quick message to the Kage summit. The red and green toad saluted his boss and jumped into the teleporting pool, closely followed by Fukasaku. Meanwhile, the great toad sage gathered the large fighting toads to alert and prepare them for the coming battle. The toads were on the war march. Uzugakure. Uza Tower. Ao was sitting at his friend's desk, looking through a few documents of importance as he waited for Naruto to return. It had been a few hours since the fateful encounter with Akatsuki in the streets of the Shinobi district, and Naruto had yet to return, much to the worry of Ao. As long as he was out, it was the ANBU general's duty to keep control over the village as temporary leader. In the meantime, he was waiting for reports from his ANBU units guarding the southwest wall as they had yet to report in. It wasn't necessarily odd, considering the fact that the rainstorm had yet to let up and it was difficult to maneuver with the strong winds blasting the village. However, ANBU were professionals and something like that shouldn't have been obstructing them from coming to report in person. But while it worried the man, he had other big problems to deal with. From what I can tell here from this message from Kiri's resistance forces, Madara is on the move. He was seen taking 4 large pots with him, all labeled a specific number. With that man's ability, who knows what he's got cooked up. As soon as Naruto arrives, I'll have to report this to him. Ao scowled and shook his head at the parchment. It wasn't news they wanted to hear. Then again, what can we expect? We were lucky that Madara and Akatsuki weren't active for the past few months. It gave us time to establish the village. I guess we're lucky that we aren't a major threat, or else Madara might have been coming after us instead of Konoha. Suddenly, a yellow flash appeared in front of the desk and Ao quickly stood up in defense. He was greeted by the Uzukage, somewhat soaked from the rain but otherwise in perfect health. He smiled and walked around the desk to meet with him face to face and allow Naruto take his place at the desk. He seemed happy. A certain glow was radiating off of the Kage that Ao noticed. Something good must have happened to him, I wonder. Uzukage-sama, good to see you're alright. When we saw you gone with those Akatsuki, we feared the worst. Naruto looked at Ao and nodded in assent. He figured they wouldn't have been too happy with that scene. Yes, I was able to meet with them and discuss a more diplomatic solution. Turns out they are defectors from the organization and wanted to help us. I accepted it since we need all the help we can get. However, I don't have much time to be here, so give me a quick report, Ao. The man was surprised by the information supplied but quickly forgot it so that he could respond to the order. Sir, we received a message from Kiri's resistance group that Madara has begun to move his forces against Konoha. Naruto visibly stiffened as he sifted through the papers on the desk, shaken by the news that Akatsuki was moving. I see, that could be a problem. Ao was surprised by the calm in his voice but paid no heed. He went on to explain the strange circumstances surrounding the invasion forces. That's not all. Apparently it isn't any normal invasion force with shinobi. The man has 4 large pots that I believe have something to do with the sealing technique. I have no proof though, just a hunch. What should we do about this? Naruto thought for a moment. His eyes were looking at the desk in thought. Nothing for now. We aren't even in an alliance with them, so it doesn't matter. What else? Ao was again shocked at the certain edge of ice in his tone but realized that he was right. They had no obligation to save Konoha. Well, I am concerned about the fact that a few of my squads are not reporting in at their posts. With this storm I feel like cutting them some slack, but for some it has been over an hour since the designated time. Naruto silently cursed and shook his head. He knew exactly what that meant. They are probably dead. We have an infiltrator in our village. Ao stiffened and scowled under his white mask. They had an enemy in the village so soon after the Akatsuki arrival? An enemy? Who? Naruto met his eyes for the first time and scowled as well, spitting out the name with venom. Sasuke Uchiha, apprentice and puppet of Madara. Ao's eyes went back to normal as he processed the information and concluded he wasn't too surprised by the fact that the boy had come, albeit he was angry that he had slipped by the man so easily. How do you want us to handle this, sir? Naruto had faith in Pain. He would leave it up to Nagato to win the day. Nothing. Have our spare ANBU squads moved to confirm the situation in the Uzumaki compound and have a double layer of jonin and medical teams deployed there. I already have someone that is dealing with him as we speak. Just make sure my wife and son are kept safe. Ao was confused as to the order, seeing as how no one in the village save for a few had the caliber to fight the Uchiha, but nodded anyway. Once again he would have to trust the younger man's judgment call. Yes, sir. I will deploy with the teams to your house myself and ensure the safety of your family. Where will you be, Naruto? Naruto was about to answer when Yamusha and a few other lava monkeys appeared in the room, surprising the ex-hunter Nin. Uzumaki-sama! They announced, bowing to Naruto. The blonde sighed and knew what they had come for. It was finally time to begin. I have training to begin, something that unfortunately cannot be delayed any further. Ao, I have left my last orders here in this scroll. Please read them as soon as possible and have them fulfilled. Naruto held up a red scroll with the Uzukage stamp seal placed over it indicating its importance. He then held up a larger scroll that had a strap to fit over a person's shoulder. Give this one to Akaru, he will know what to do with it. Ao nodded and placed the orders in one of his vest scroll pouches while shouldering the larger scroll to take with him. Anything else, sir? He asked as it seemed the Uzukage would be leaving them again with little warning, a recurring trait with the young leader that made Ao uncomfortable. Just know that when I return, it will be the last time I will ever leave my people again. When I return. Naruto paused and walked around his desk to stand in front of the summons, a serious scowl set on his features. We will finish this war once and for all. As soon as Naruto uttered the last syllable, he and the monkeys disappeared in a puff of smoke, leaving Ao to gather the forces of Uzu once again. Be safe, Naruto. I hope that for all our sakes, you can complete that training in record time. Ao thought to himself before he held up a hand sign and disappeared to accomplish his mission. Uzugakure. Uzumaki compound. As Mei slept soundly within her home, a confrontation was brewing at the front gates of the compound. Pain made no move to start the battle, waiting for Sasuke to make the first move. The boy in question was glaring at the ringed-eyed man with his Mangekyo activated, dark energy flowing through him as he allowed his hate to fuel his power. Get out of my way! Sasuke charged forward with his sword, intent on getting rid of the first one to stand in his way. The Deva path held up an open palm towards the boy while the Azura path had a smirk on its face. Before Sasuke could respond, a burst of speed from the mechanical path forced his eyes on it instead, and he brought up his sword to block a kick from it. With its first attack a failure, the Azura path weaved easily out of a stab from Sasuke's weapon and grabbed a hold of his weapon arm. Using its immense strength, Azura threw Sasuke into the air, allowing Deva to use his technique safely. Shinra Tensei! Sasuke felt a concentrated blast of chakra explode into his vulnerable body, and was sent flying out of the village into the deep forest. Satisfied with the distance he shot the boy, Deva looked at Azura and inclined his head towards the animal path, and the strong man of the group nodded in assent. He grabbed the woman's slender body and threw her in the direction Sasuke landed, allowing Nagato to move the battle away from Uzugakure. The animal path sensed Sasuke's chakra and landed on a tree branch safely, going through hand signs before slamming her hand onto the ground. Summoning technique! From the smoke came the other 5 paths, and they hustled over to where Sasuke's dark energy was leaking from. They found the boy leaning against a tree, trying to gather his breath. A long trench in the ground and a few broken limbs in the trees above indicated his landing had not been graceful, and there was signs of bleeding from the Uchiha. With no remorse in their bodies, the paths got into a formation and prepared to finish the boy off as he glared at them with his eyes. Damn you, Pain! At first I thought you were joking, should have known you weren't the joking type. Oh well, I suppose your usefulness has ended. Sasuke's left eye began to bleed as his murderous smirk erupted on his face, obviously believing the battle over. Pain showed no signs of moving as the boy prepared his eye's special attack, Amaterasu, The black flames raced towards the gathered paths before the Predator moved in front of them, and held his hands up in defense. Sasuke began to chuckle darkly as he watched the man futilely attempt to block his attack. It would do no good. Amaterasu was the god's vengeance, the flames of the heavens, they were unquenchable. No one could put them out except a fellow Mangekyo user. Or at least, that was what the boy thought until he saw the flames begin to warp and disappear into the large Akatsuki's hands. What? How the hell did he defeat the flames? Preta lowered its hands. A small amount of smoke emanated from either hand and the smell of burnt flesh was obvious. While the Preta could absorb the attack, even something of its magnitude could only be contained so many times before the Preta would be unable to do so again. Nagato coughed up blood from absorbing Amaterasu flames. It was an overwhelming amount of power that the path took in. As it was only a lifeless puppet with no chakra system of its own, the chakra absorbed from the Amaterasu was transferred to Nagato. Instead of being able to harness it though, the dark flames were almost lethal to Nagato before he ended their existence with his powers. That was too close. How did you? Sasuke couldn't find the right words to articulate to his opponent. He was too shocked by his almighty powers being defeated so easily. Do not underestimate the powers of the Rinnegan. I am your superior in all ways, Uchiha. Show some respect before I end you. The Deva countered. Nagato enjoyed the look of recoil on the boy's face with the counter. Damn it, I guess I'll have to try something else. Sasuke said out loud as he prepared himself. He did his best to calm down before beginning. Pain watched with little emotion, feeling it was best to humor the boy for a short time before he killed him. It would do no good for him to go into the afterlife whining like a child for being defeated so quick. It would not be a welcome encounter for anyone. I cannot delay his death for too long. My own time is coming shortly. Nagato thought to himself as he prepared to meet Sasuke's counterattack with his own. Crouching in a low stance, Sasuke suddenly used hidden seals on his forearms to summon two large windmill shuriken. Pain watched as the boy threw both weapons towards his group. He held up his hand and Sasuke could see a concentrated sphere of chakra begin to form around him. So that's his power. The ability to repel objects with his chakra. That is the power of the Rinnegan. Looks like this will be quite a challenge. Shinra Tensei! The projectiles were suddenly launched back at Sasuke at outrageous speeds, forcing him to think fast. With a quick crouch movement, Sasuke leaped through the space between the shuriken to escape the attack. Sensing the boy's precarious position, Nagato manipulated the Azura path to send it on a crash course with Sasuke that would allow the blade on its back to impale the Uchiha. Sasuke read the attack with his Sharingan and began to focus his chakra. Azura impaled the boy but soon found that it had been tricked, hitting only a log. It scowled and threw the broken wood off of its body, searching for the boy's location. Substitution, how simple. Nagato thought over the move that the Uchiha used to escape as he searched for the boy with 6 pairs of eyes. Chidori Senban. Sasuke whispered from a nearby tree branch and shot dozens of small lightning needles straight at the recovering Azura, seeing its vulnerability. Unfortunately for Sasuke, Naraka Path saw the attack coming and without even turning towards the attack's location, Azura jumped out of the way with a sidestep. Sasuke's eyes widened at the unbelievable move done by the path, taking suspicious notice of the Naraka Path staring at him. Their eyes, are they linked? That one wasn't even looking at me and he knew when to dodge. The Rinnegan has many features. Bansho Tenin! Sasuke felt a pull on his body and saw the Deva Path holding its hand towards him again, this time using his power to pull Sasuke instead of push. Damn it! He cursed mentally when he saw the Azura step in his flight path with its carving knife aimed right at his abdomen, a sure hit this time. Calling on his left eye's power again, Sasuke formed an Amaterasu shield in front of him, forcing the Preta Path to jump in front and take the jutsu. This, coupled with Nagato's pain from absorbing the technique, led the Deva Path to momentarily falter in his technique and freed Sasuke. With Nagato's moment of vulnerability evident in Sasuke's eyes, he stabbed the vulnerable Preta right in the chest. This incapacitated the body, leaving 5 paths still up. That is one down. Sasuke looked to see both the human and Asura path rush him and stalled his counterattack. He caught one punch from the human path and almost knocked the Asura path's fist away when it suddenly changed course to avoid his counter. The arrow was knocked out of Sasuke when its fist impacted his stomach, leaving him vulnerable to a devastating knee kick from human that sent him flying backwards. The Asura grabbed one of its hands and pulled hard, revealing a cord from within the arm that had missiles attached to it. Aiming them all at Sasuke, it shot them off and had their heat-seeking abilities keep the lock on Sasuke's body strong so he couldn't escape. The Uchiha pushed himself up and prepared his counter. Sasuke had finally begun to sweat from the intensity of the battle. The missiles impacted the spot where Sasuke had occupied and Nagato waited until his vision cleared to confirm his death. He was disappointed, however, when out of the smoke came Sasuke crouching in a large crater. The difference was that he had activated his level 2 curse form and used one of its wings to protect him from the blast. Observing his new form, Pain concluded that he would now have extra stamina and strength, and prepared himself with caution. Sasuke lowered his battered wing and looked at the paths, taking a quick stock of the situation. His surprise was topped once again when he saw all 6 bodies standing, that included the one that he had stabbed into. How was he still up? Sasuke was sure he had killed him with a stab to the heart. Another power of the Rinnegan? How many abilities does he have? Sasuke grimaced in pain and held his side, still not fully healed from the first encounter with Pain. Now you see, it is futile to stand against Pain, Deva announced to the boy. Nagato had seen his shock when Preto was resurrected and that allowed fear to creep into the Uchiha's heart. I am not done yet! A warbled war cry erupted from the Avenger's throat as he created a Chidori and used it to electrify his sword, charging forward towards Deva. It held up a hand towards him, as if to make him stop. Sasuke had already seen the trick once though and waited for the right moment to move. Pain launched his concentrated shockwave but was surprised to see Sasuke time his dodge correctly and sidestep the blast. It knocked down a tree behind where Sasuke stood before ending. He continued his charge until the animal path arrived in front of Deva and summoned something. Summoning technique! A large rhinoceros appeared and impacted Sasuke, slamming him backwards and away from the main path. The animal path's eyes widened when it saw numerous large white snakes appear over the rhino and begin to constrict its body. Before it could be killed, she unsummoned it, allowing the human path to charge forward with a chakra disruption blade appearing from its arm. Sasuke met his attack with his blade and the clack could be heard over the roaring rainstorm when the two impacted. In the bit of strength, Sasuke found that they were both equal and knew he had to do something. His Sharingan tracked Asura and Deva coming towards him on either flank. One had a similar chakra blade while the other had simply its fists. With no other options, Sasuke opened both of his eyes to reveal the Mangekyo. A ribcage formed around his body and all 3 paths were forced back from the defensive barrier. Nagato had never encountered such a defense, and was momentarily intrigued by it before beginning to prepare another attack. Sasuke's breathing had picked up and it was obvious in combination with battle fatigue that creating Susanoo was difficult for his body to handle. Asura prepared to launch more missiles from the hidden areas in his hollow arms while Deva went through hand seals for a jutsu. The other paths stood back as they had no long-range capabilities. Sasuke observed the beginnings of the counterattack and began to focus his anger and hatred to further develop the Susanoo. Arms began to sprout from the ribcage as Pain launched his attack. Fire release! Flame bullet! Deva released a large blast of fire from its mouth towards Sasuke as the missiles impacted his shielded body. Craters were created everywhere around the Susanoo's body and Sasuke grunted from exertion in keeping the shield up. Pain's fire attack hit next, and it literally forced Sasuke onto his knees from the pain from both his eyes being used to maintain the skeleton. The smoke was cleared to reveal Sasuke's shield intact, albeit much paler, and the energy wavering. The 2 arms that had formed now both held a single sword of blackish-red chakra. Sasuke launched his attack at the concentrated paths, using his sword to swing in a horizontal arc low to the ground to make it more difficult to dodge. As it was too quick for a complete dodge, Azura was sacrificed by throwing Deva into the air while the others had just enough room to escape on their own. Sasuke cursed as the 5 remaining pads easily recovered and stared at him with little emotion to their downed comrade. What does it take to kill this guy? Sasuke was again assaulted by a surge of pain emanating from his eyes and fell to the ground on all fours. Pain looked at him with little pity and saw victory close at hand as the arms disappeared, leaving the weakened ribcage all that was keeping Sasuke safe. The 2 opponents met each other's gaze for a moment before Pain launched his next attack, concentrated on finishing off Sasuke's shield. Wind release, gale force blow! Pain gathered up the wind in his mouth and shot it forward with a certain swing to his neck, allowing it to release in the form of a wide crescent. The attack was sent like a razor-sharp knife at Sasuke, impacting and shattering the unbreakable Susanoo. With little physical energy left, Sasuke once again activated his level 2 curse mark and used that chakra to give him a burst of speed and escape into the forest. Deva watched him run for a moment before looking back at Naraka to see it just finishing up reviving Azura. Nagato could feel the end was close and sent all 6 pads after the ailing form of Sasuke. With little energy left, Sasuke was now desperate to either escape or receive backup from Madara. He figured the old man couldn't accomplish his objectives if he was allowed to die, so he just had to live long enough until he came to bail him out. While it would be embarrassing to explain his loss, Sasuke was confident that he could save face by admitting to not having enough info on the Rinnegan for an excuse. Just have to escape that blasted pain. Sasuke felt a sharp surge of pain in his abdomen and screamed in anguish. He missed the next jump from his flinch and landed hard on the wet, muddy ground of Yuzu. He deactivated his Sharingan for a moment to assess his surroundings when a great horror came upon him. He could see nothing in front of him. Everything was white and scratchy. He had gone blind. In disbelief and anger, Sasuke gathered his chakra into his hand and sent a strong surge of lightning into the ground. The large explosion sent Sasuke flying backwards and brought pain to the pitiful sight of a cowering Sasuke. The boy was in a fetal position near a fallen tree. As he got closer, Pain could hear the boy whimpering words of forgiveness or something other. It was useless though, no god would hear him today. Look how far the mighty Uchiha have fallen. Sasuke warily looked up from his prone position, looking in all directions trying to find the source of the noise. He looked absolutely terrified. So, the Mangekyo's drawback has finally finished destroying your eyesight. How pitiful. Sasuke futilely waved his arms in front of him, attempting to ward away Pain. Stay back! Don't touch me! Avoiding his pitiful swats, the human and Preta pads took both his arms and lifted him to sit on his knees in front of Deva. There is no point in resisting. I am already absorbing your chakra and reading your mind. There is nothing left for you to do but resign yourself to fate. Sasuke's blind eyes finally seemed to lock onto Deva's cold, toneless voice. He looked up into the eyes of his soon-to-be executioner with fear. Please, spare me. He begged. It was nothing to Nagato. He was one of hundreds that had asked the same thing moments before their death. Pitiful, you use your last words to beg. What would your family think of you now? Your brother gave everything to redeem you, and yet you killed him in your lust for power. Your parents were sacrificed because of fear, while all they did was show love and hope for you. There is nothing left that they love inside of this body. It is merely a shell. The former Sasuke Uchiha died long ago. Think of this as a favor. Sasuke felt a pang in his heart as he was reminded of the actions of his family. He then realized that maybe there was a different path he could have followed had he chosen differently. Itachi! Sasuke whispered as Deva lifted its arm into the air and formed a chakra blade. Mother! Deva brought it down and leveled it a short distance from the boy's heart, preparing for the final move. I'm sorry! Pain launched his arm forward and impaled Sasuke on his blade, successfully piercing his heart and ending the boy's life. This god acknowledges your apology. Pain noted as the boy showed signs of redemption in his final moments, something a lesser man like Madara would never admit to. He shoved the boy's body off of his blade and retracted it back into his body. Nagato was feeling quite weakened after the battle was over, suddenly realizing his adrenaline kept him in the dark over his body's grim condition. Seeing that he had little time to spare, the human path picked Sasuke's body up and headed back for Kirigakure. Madara felt something in the back of his mind and looked off in a seemingly random direction. His thoughts were clouded with a variety of emotions: disappointment, expectation, pity, and even laughter. One of the men near him saw him stop moving and questioned his leader. "Sir, is something wrong?" Madara turned his attention back to the trail and kept walking with little else on the matter to say. "No, keep moving. Sasuke has died. That is one loose end gone." Uzugakure. Uzukage Tower. In a flash of light, the 6 paths were in the empty, dark room of Naruto's job place. Deva grabbed an empty scroll, wrote a few notes down with a brush and ink, and finally sealed Sasuke's body away for a proper burial. If he had behaved differently at the end, pain would have left him to rot in the muddy earth. With his final request of forgiveness, though, Nagato felt generous enough. A cough of blood on Nagato's end made all the paths stiffen for a moment. His end was drawing near. With little else to do, Nagato recalled his paths back to him. He wanted to make sure that only Naruto would find their dead corpses, and he wanted to make sure Yahiko would receive a proper burial. Going through a few hand signs, Nagato used what was left of his chakra to awaken the 7th path and bring back to life those killed by Sasuke that night. With the boy's confession and the need for able-bodied shinobi for the coming battle, Nagato knew that he had to use the last of his powers wisely. Yuza Island. Nagato's hideaway. As he waited for his bodies to return, Nagato struggled to keep conscious as the internal damage to his body began to leak over to his outer appearance. His bleeding was now emanating from his back as well as his mouth, and his breathing was very erratic as his lungs worked harder to take in the desired amount of oxygen. Whether it be an illusion brought on by his dire situation or a gift from Kami, Nagato saw in front of him a small rift in space. Within it was his dear friend, Yahiko. The boy was in his old AIM overcoat, the same one that he wore the day he died. His face was bright and cheerful, exactly like it was when all 3 orphans were with Jiraiya, like when they were a family. "Yahiko." Nagato, despite his condition, garbled out a greetings through a bloody smile. To his disappointment, the boy did not say anything back. He merely stood there with a smile, beckoning Nagato to come closer. "I'm sorry, Yahiko. ****. I wasn't the messiah you thought I could be. ****. More blood erupted from his mouth and stained the rocky ground below him. Yahiko frowned at the sight of his friend. Nagato began to smile as he remembered Naruto. That boy was the true messiah of peace. Yahiko seemed to notice his upbeat attitude and smiled again. "I know I didn't. ****give the world peace like I promised. But I found someone else that could do it better than I. Please, Yahiko, give Naruto your blessing. Again Nagato found himself at odds with his coughing, now finding it very difficult to talk with blood coming up from his esophagus. Yahiko nodded his head once, and then reached his hand forward, through the portal and towards Nagato's unmoving form. With a little burst of energy, Nagato slowly detached his left arm from the machine, and weakly reached out to grab his friend's hand. "Hang on, I'm coming." When their hands touched, Nagato felt a light feeling inside his frail body slowly leave himself and felt a pull that would send him through the portal to Yahiko. He now realized that this was Kami's way of delivering him to the afterlife, and he wanted to thank the kind God for allowing him to see Yahiko once more. Once his entire body had been pulled through the rift, it disappeared, leaving a shell of a body behind and 6 fallen puppets at the mouth of the cave. The god amongst men had passed on. Land of Sound. Jiraiya was running through the trees, jumping from branch to branch in search of the entrance to Orochimaru's current lair. With use of the Great Toad Sage's crystal ball, they were able to locate Orochimaru's location, which Jiraiya desperately needed. He had to speak to his teammate. It was urgent business with the oncoming attack of Konoha. He felt a few chakra signatures approaching him, and knew he had little time to play games. He quickly went through hand signs and mid-hop, and launched a large flame bullet forward through the trees. 3 bodies fell to the ground, burnt and writhing in utter pain from the attack. The sound shinobi had thought they would ambush the trespasser when in reality they were no match for the particular invader. Jiraiya created a Rasengan in his palm and launched forward into an empty spot on a tree branch. He was rewarded with a scream and blood when the sound shinobi reappeared from his chameleon technique and slammed into the tree behind him. Jiraiya could feel no more presences and continued on, this time without any obstacles along the way. I must close if they bothered to attack me now. Come out, Orochimaru, I know you're here. It wasn't long before Jiraiya's keen eyes found purchase with a steel door that was up against a large piece of rock. With a single strong punch, the door came crashing down and allowed Jiraiya easy entrance to his old friend's lair. His cool pose only lasted a moment before he broke down into tears and nursed his hurt hand from hitting a heavy steel door. Ouch! Land of Sound. Orochimaru's hideout. Kabuto was on his way to attend to his master with some medicine when a faint echo emanated from down the long hallway of rock. He thought it sounded like a person but shrugged it off as impossible before continuing to walk down the hall. With his primary host gone, Orochimaru could only delay his inevitable death with drugs that Kabuto cooked up, but the silver-haired boy was running out of formula to keep his master alive. They had few options anyway since the Land of Sound was falling apart without an active leader. Orochimaru was now confined to his bed, no longer strong enough to get up and walk. Only a miracle could bring him back to his original strength. Kabuto had hoped to find a solution, but there was none. His master had also been quiet on the fact he was dying, a far outcry from the complaints he had been expecting. Perhaps Orochimaru-sama has a plan. Or maybe he has finally accepted his dream of immortality is coming to an end. What will I do when he is dead? Kabuto honestly didn't know the answer. He would be killed if he returned to the Leaf, but he was considered a criminal everywhere but the Sound. It wouldn't last though, as his immunity from being within Sound would falter upon his master's death. Without Orochimaru, there was no Sound. He was the village leader, lead scientist, and practically the ruler over the entire nation of rice fields. Once the neighboring countries received word of his death, they would see the weakness and attempt to invade. He knocked on the door of his master's room upon arriving and received a feeble "come in" from Orochimaru. Kabuto opened the door to find the pitiful form of his master laying in bed as if he had come down with a common cold. It wasn't any normal sickness though, it was the rejection of the previous host's body and his age that kept him so weak. Kabuto began to move towards his master but stopped when Orochimaru held up a hand. A scowl on his features told him something was wrong. I'm disappointed, Kabuto. I expected that you were better than that. His eyes narrowed in confusion, and his brow crinkled as he attempted to decipher what he meant. What do you mean, Orochimaru-sama? The pale man scoffed, and pointed at the boy's shadow, created from the candles that hung from the walls of the room. It began to change shape and forced Kabuto to jump away from it, close to Orochimaru. Jiraiya appeared and cracked his joints from being in such an uncomfortable spot for that long period of time. Kabuto glared at the newcomer and got out a kunai. He was prepared to defend Orochimaru to the death if necessary. Jiraiya, how unpleasant it is to see you! Orochimaru seethed. His usual sarcasm was gone in place to pessimism due to his dire situation. The pale-haired man looked his old teammate up and down, and gave a hearty laugh that was full of pity. The snake Sannin scowled and felt the urge to crush the man's neck only to realize he could barely move. Shut up, you bastard! Kabuto yelled out, clutching his kunai tightly as he waited for the attack. Jiraiya calmed himself a bit, and allowed a smile to grace his face despite the tense situation. Orochimaru, I thought you were stronger than that. I guess the years haven't been too kind to you since we last met. The scowl did not disappear from the man's face, and he sneered in angry disgust. What the hell do you want, Jiraiya? Finally come to kill me? It is sad that you have to come and do it when I can no longer fight back. Jiraiya's smile turned to a serious scowl as he looked his old comrade in the eye, trying to show how serious him being there was. No. Orochimaru's eyes widened as Jiraiya denied his guess. I've come to ask for your help. Both Orochimaru and Kabuto's eyes widened at the sound of that. Jiraiya wanted their help. Land of Fire. Kirigakure outskirts. Madara was nearing Konoha. His men were already beginning the final preparations of the assault. The plan was simple: take control of the beasts and summon them right in the midst of Konoha's surprise defenders. The village would be annihilated in an instant with the power of four-tailed beasts. It would not take a moment longer for Madara to accomplish his revenge. "Sir, we are awaiting your order to crack the seals." Madara turned his attention to the men that surrounded each of the pots, and brought his hands up to signal them to begin. "Go! Release the beasts from the containers. It is almost time, even Hashirama Senju himself couldn't stop me now." Land of Iron. Iron Castle. Kage meeting. "And so I suggest we unite, or intelligence divisions, into one organization." Finished his speech, bringing the Kage's attention to the benefits of combining their forces. "That is all well and good, but when will we strike back against Madara?" Inoki wondered out loud to the group. They had done so much preparation yet had not made a single claim to attack. "We have no target. Kiri is merely a puppet to Madara. We must wait until he reveals himself to challenge him." Gaara reminded the Tsuchikage, who gave a huff of frustration before quieting down. "Can we defeat him though when we don't even know his strength?" Tsunade muttered, loud enough for the other Kage to hear. Inoki grunted. "I fought him once. I may be able to offer some insight. It would be better if we could speak with that Shodai of yours, Hashirama. Too bad he kicked the bucket." Tsunade glared at him for speaking so freely of her grandfather's death but said nothing. A loud knocking came to the door of the large meeting room, since then repaired from Sasuke's original assault. The doubled samurai guard within the room stiffened and moved toward the door, their swords up and ready. The captain with the wolf pelt on his back signaled the men to open it, and they pulled on the heavy slab doors to open. As they expected the enemy to emerge from the hallway, all the men present had to incline their heads down to see the small-toed messenger that was waving at them. "Yo! Is Tsunade here?" The woman in question looked over towards the door and saw a toad, one that was affiliated with Fukasaku. "Yes, I am right here." The toad looked over and smiled at the sight of her, quickly hopping on the table by the other surprised Kage and giving her a message scroll from his back. Tsunade opened the scroll quickly with curious eyes and found out soon just how dire the situation was at home. The other Kage watched as her eyes widened and her breathing became heavy, obviously indicating something was very wrong. "What is it, Tsunade?" A question, concerned for the female Hokage. She looked up from the scroll with trembling hands and dropped it on the table. "Konoha is about to come under attack by Madara. He is going to use the tailed beasts on the village." The collective gasps from around the room were enough to show the shock of the news, and A immediately stood up from his seat. "We must rally the troops and head for Konoha. This is our chance to defeat Madara once and for all." Inoki huffed and signaled for Akatsuchi to come and pick him up. The big man put the leader on his back. "We don't have much time. We have to head for our villages immediately." The other Kage nodded and Mifune turned towards his bodyguards. "Order the platoons on standby to prepare for marching orders. We head for Konoha." Just as the man was reaching for his transceiver, a kunai flew through the air from an unseen location and slit the man's throat. "I'm afraid we can't allow any of you to leave this place." The Kage looked up into the stands of the room to find dozens of root shinobi surrounding them. The samurai looked ready to charge forward but secretly placed explosive tags erupted on the wall behind them and killed them all in a dirty trick. With the Kage now left only with their bodyguards, the leader of this ambush made his appearance known. Tsunade scowled at the sight of Danzo calmly finding a spot within the wall of root forces as he smiled at them. The old man had been waiting for the meeting to adjourn before showing himself. Now it was his turn to finish the battle in a blaze of glory. With little else to say, Danzo signaled for his men to launch their attack at the bewildered Kage. Yuza Island. Mountain of Fire. Naruto sat on the very edge of the volcano, in a meditative form with his palms up against each other in quiet concentration. The rain clouds were not tall enough to reach the height of the volcano's mouth, so it allowed Naruto peace for his training. The lava monkey surrounded him, quietly watching him as he began the first stage of training. "Master Yamusha, please remind me again of the first phase and its point." The large monkey cleared its throat and began to speak again to remind the boy the importance of the first part. This stage of training is what all Crimsonbacks are subjected to, and upon its completion, you will be an honorary Crimsonback yourself. It encourages inner balance with your physical and spiritual energy as you meditate near a very dangerous and very real hazard, the volcano. After you can completely still your chakra and find a peaceful medium, we will take you lower into the mouth so you will sit on a very hot ledge of cooled magma. Once you can handle that, you will allow scalding lava to hit and burn your back, effectively making you a Crimsonback. We have been able to survive this by conditioning our bodies through training and from our ancestors' hardy skin. That is also where all humans have so far died. It is up to you to find a way to survive and accustom yourself to the lava so that you may not be hurt by it. Naruto opened his eyes for a moment to look at Yamusha. His shirt was off, so there was nothing that protected Naruto from the heat behind him. It felt like tiny blisters were erupting on his skin. What will happen after that? Yamusha looked to Yamera to explain the final step, and the younger monkey spoke up. Naruto-sama, if you can successfully survive and accustom your body to the extreme heat of the lava, you will then move on to the final stage. In the final stage, you must completely submerge yourself in the lava and find balance. It will be extremely difficult, if not impossible, to do, but if you can stay alive while being completely unmoving, you can absorb the natural heat, or otherwise known as geothermal energy, into your body. This will augment you in a variety of ways, but what we really wish to see is the fabled avatar form. It is said that only the Four Tails himself was able to accomplish this, and that the ability was passed on to his Jinchuuriki through his chakra. If you can master that form, you will be a demigod among men and without match. Naruto had no idea how he was going to survive such a rigorous training regimen, but the sound of reward was too high for him to refuse. I promised everyone that I would accomplish this. Mei has confidence in me. I can't fail. Understood. He looked eyes with the monkeys and proudly told them his decision. I'll get it done in 2 weeks. Quick pause, guys. I just want to take a second to say thank you. We actually hit 3,000 subscribers, and that is entirely because of you. I genuinely could not have done it without this community, and it means more than I can put into words. Now we're setting our sights on 3,000, and if you're not subscribed yet, this is your moment. It takes 1 second, and it truly makes a difference. Alright, let's get back to it. Naruto's not going to wait forever. Chapter 30. Reunion with Blood, Konoha's Shodai Reborn. Arc, Yuzuno-kuni, 6th Elemental Nation. Land of Sound. Orochimaru's Hideaway. My help. What the hell does that mean? Orochimaru was at first surprised, but it was soon replaced with anger. Was it some sort of joke? Jiraiya kept his poker face though. It was no joke. To defeat the tailed beasts they would need an expert on fighting them, let alone countering Madara's interference. Because Jiraiya had no experience in the forbidden arts of revival techniques, he had to go to the man who perfected it, Orochimaru. I need you to summon a dead person with the Edo Tensei, can you do it? Orochimaru's surprise lowered back down to a comfortable smirk, and he began to laugh. This irritated Jiraiya. Ha! You want to revive someone? You want me to do it? I thought you were better than that, Jiraiya, having to use such a forbidden technique. Why would you want their soul to suffer by bringing them back to this hell? Jiraiya crossed his arms and decided that it was best to explain the situation. Orochimaru, Madara Uchiha is alive and well. In fact, he is the leader of Akatsuki. Right now he is on his way to Konoha with 4-tailed beasts just waiting to unleash them on the village. I know you don't care about Konoha, but the least you can do is hear me out. Orochimaru was surprised to hear that Madara was going to use 4-tailed beasts on Konoha. However, as Jiraiya said, he really didn't care. Fine then, I'll humor you. Why should I help you? Jiraiya let out a breath. He had been holding it. At least his old teammate would hear him out. Well, I can see that you are sick. How about I find a way to cure you? Orochimaru scowled at the man for his pitiful offer and waved an arm towards Kabuto. You really think you can find a cure? Kabuto has tried everything and yet I'm still bedridden. I have no host to transfer into. I will be dead soon. Why should I even bother to trust that you could fulfill that promise when we have been enemies for ages? Because we are teammates. No matter if you are a traitor to the village or not, that doesn't mean the time we were together was lost. I loved you like a brother, you were the greatest rival I could ask for, but you had to leave the village so you could gain immortality. That hit everyone hard, but it hit me the hardest. That was why I went after you, to get a straight answer. Orochimaru realized it was turning into a shouting match over their past, and decided to defend himself. That damned village could offer me nothing. I learned the techniques, did the missions, tried to become Hokage. Everything I did wasn't enough. My experiments were prohibited and my rightful place as Yondaime was given to that damn brat you trained. What was left for me? Nothing. Your pitiful attempt to get me to come back only solidified my choice. Nothing has changed. Jiraiya gritted his teeth as he listened to his teammate talk trash about the village. It made him cringe with anger. Have you really lost all your feelings from when you were in Konoha? When we were on a team, wasn't that fun, rewarding even? Can you really say that you no longer have any ties with the village? Orochimaru smiled, an evil smile that just made Jiraiya scowl. Oh, of course I have ties with the village, Jiraiya. If of course they will net me more power. The only thing left in me is bitter hatred. Now get out of here. Jiraiya wasn't about to leave though, he needed Orochimaru's help. Since I haven't forgotten what it means to be a real teammate, I'll offer my body to be your next host. Just please, help save Konoha with me. The two sound ninja were taken aback by Jiraiya's offer. Was he really willing to sacrifice himself? What are you saying? Do you even understand the basis of Orochimaru-sama's technique? You are too old, your body would reject him within a few moments. It's hopeless to try and barter with that argument. Orochimaru said nothing as Kabuto explained the basic details of the technique to Jiraiya. There has to be some way. Maybe we can get Tsunade to heal you, or maybe find someone that is acceptable. Anything. Orochimaru was again surprised by Jiraiya's attitude. The man seemed as if he was going insane with desperation. What the hell is the matter with you, Jiraiya? Why are you trying so hard for Konoha? It has done nothing for you, even your precious Tsunade never fell for you. Why are you bartering for their lives like a beggar in the streets? Jiraiya looked down at the floor, trying his best to formulate an answer. It's not just for Konoha, I'm doing this because you were once my teammate, I haven't forgotten it like you have. Even if you don't have any desire to help Konoha, the least you can do is help me one last time. I can't force you, so it's up to you whether Konoha gets the help it needs or not. Orochimaru shook his head. The man forgot who he was talking to. He was the bitter hater of the leaf. You were going to try and get me to summon the Shodai Hokage, weren't you? Jiraiya looked at him with surprise at how he saw through his plan but nodded anyway. You wanted to control the tailed beast, leaving Madara without an army. Well, even if I was willing, the man is trapped in the stomach of the death god. We can't get him out without contacting the god himself. Jiraiya smirked and pointed a thumb at his chest in triumph. The third showed me the technique to summon him. All I need is your cooperation, and we can have the Shodai up and running pretty quick. Orochimaru was again amazed by Jiraiya's spontaneity but thought little of it. We would also need a sacrifice, a living one. There isn't any chance that we can find one on such short notice. Jiraiya had thought of that, but the specifics were where things began to get fuzzy. Well, I was planning on sacrificing myself if you didn't have a better idea. Orochimaru was again surprised at how casual his teammate suggested his own death. What happened to Jiraiya? Are you sure that would be such a good idea? I thought you were supposed to help heal me. The man gave an apologetic smile and scratched the back of his head. Sorry, these little details are a bit difficult for me to keep track of. Orochimaru sighed. There was his old teammate with his annoying forgetfulness. Orochimaru-sama, you can't actually be thinking of accepting his offer. He's from Konoha, he could just be lying. Kabuto argued. He had expected Orochimaru to do something about Jiraiya, yet here he remained in his bed chambers. Kabuto, I am dying, there is little point in being stubborn. Even if he was lying and he was here to kill me, I am about to die anyway. I could sacrifice myself and get some vengeance against Akatsuki with my last breath. It would be better than laying in this bed waiting to die. Jiraiya's eyes widened as his friend brainstormed out loud. He couldn't be considering being the sacrifice? Orochimaru! I thought we discussed that if anything I would be the sacrifice. You still have a chance to get healed or get a new host. I don't know that technique, I'm not immortal. You still have to learn the world's jutsu, right? Orochimaru began to chuckle at Jiraiya's hasty reprimand of his idea when the reality was he couldn't comprehend Orochimaru's thoughts. I'm not so sure I even understand myself these days. Maybe it is the influence of the drugs, but I feel like being a little heroic in my last moments. It would be sweet irony for the leaf to be saved by one of its greatest defectors. I can just imagine their faces now. Summon the death god Jiraiya, let's get this over with. The man looked as if he was going to protest further, but Orochimaru caught him off with a glare and a coughing fit. Fine. Jiraiya dejectedly admitted, going through the hand signs and summoning the death god himself. The floating specter floated right behind the white-haired man. Why has a mortal summoned me? The death god, impatient as ever, went straight to the point as he saw the three men inside the room. Shinigami-sama, we would like to request that you allow us to temporarily revive one of the souls in your stomach. We are in dire need of his abilities. A loud roar from the god quieted Jiraiya, fearful of getting on his bad side. That is impossible. All the souls consumed by me are in a never-ending struggle with the ones who placed them there. They cannot be removed so easily. Jiraiya gulped and turned towards Orochimaru, who was beginning the preparations for the resurrection with Kabuto. Please, Shinigami-sama, there must be some deal we can work out to just have the spirit temporarily leave and return. Just for a few hours, that is all I ask. Jiraiya got on his knees to beg, surprising the omniscient god. Is it really that important? A shinobi bowing so low, could this be a true human crisis? Jiraiya nodded his head multiple times. They were practically desperate. He looked up to see the Shinigami looking off into space as he was thinking. It may be done if and only if the soul is on loan and will be returned to me shortly. Also, as this should not become a common thing, I must ask for another sacrifice to come back along with the soul of your chosen warrior. Jiraiya's eyes widened at the hearing of a second sacrifice to appease the death god. He turned around to see Orochimaru's thoughts on it. Does it require any specific criteria? Jiraiya questioned, and the Shinigami shook its head negatively. He turned to Orochimaru and patted his chest. I can be the second sacrifice if you will be the one to inherit the soul, Orochimaru. The pale man shook his head to Jiraiya's volunteering. It wasn't a good plan at all. No, the Shodai will need someone here to guide him to Konoha and explain the situation. Since you are the one that came up with the idea, you must be the one to lead him. I'm dying, Jiraiya. Even if I wanted to, I couldn't change hosts anymore. All that is left is for me to try and do something with my life. I'm not asking for redemption, I'm just asking for a worthy way to die. What better way than to become the Shodai incarnated? Jiraiya swallowed a lump in his throat. Was Orochimaru really willing to go through with it? That was a shock to both Kabuto and the Toad Sage. If he shall not be the sacrifice, then who will? Orochimaru grimaced when he did not have an answer when Kabuto sighed and volunteered. I'll do it. Jiraiya looked at the boy with surprise. He had no reason to volunteer when he had a future. Kabuto, I understand you are loyal to me, but you aren't needed here. Kabuto adjusted his glasses and had a small smile on his face, surprising the Sannin. Orochimaru-sama, I have nothing left after you die. I am an international criminal. All the countries of the world will be after me when Akatsuki is gone. I've also found that I function best as a follower, not a leader. If you die and I live, who will I follow orders from? Besides. Kabuto turned towards his master and smirked. You would be nothing without my advice and help in the afterlife. Orochimaru's grimace turned to a smirk and he chuckled darkly. If this was a different situation, Kabuto, I would demand an explanation of that talk. But in this case, I'll take that as a compliment. Kabuto bowed his head as Jiraiya said nothing. There was nothing to say, as it seemed his friend was convinced of his mission. Let us finish this. Begin your resurrection jutsu. Orochimaru summoned a coffin labeled with the endearing kanji for first, as such for the one they would be summoning. Jiraiya, help me get to the coffin, I can't walk. Jiraiya quickly moved to his old friend's bedside and gently lifted him up, balancing him with an arm over his shoulders. Orochimaru, are you sure? Jiraiya had to ask one last time. This was the last chance he had to take back his place as the sacrifice. Orochimaru shook his head and entered the tall standing coffin. I guess this is goodbye, Jiraiya. Just remember, don't let the leaf look at this as a favor from me. I'm not really doing it for them, this is just so I can die with some dignity. Jiraiya, despite himself, smiled at his old friend's words and wiped his eyes a little bit. Yeah, you got it, pal. Orochimaru nodded and held up the final hand sign for Edo Tensei, causing the coffin to slowly close and cover him inside. Human! Come forward so I may absorb your soul. Your master will follow you into the afterlife when it is time for Hashirama's soul to return. Kabuto came towards the sound of the voice and felt a ghostly appendage slam into his stomach, causing him to gasp out in surprise and pain. The Shinigami pulled on Kabuto's soul and ripped it from within him, its blue aura writhing in pain as his body fell pale and limp. Without even a final word, Kabuto's body hit the floor and the Reaper ate it whole, leaving it confined to its stomach. With that action done, the spirit regurgitated a soul to attempt to release Hashirama from its jail. Holding it in his arms, the screaming head of a soul was revealed to be his brother, Tobirama. The Shinigami shook its head and ate Tobirama again, preparing for a second time to find Hashirama. With a final tug from its esophagus, the soul of Hashirama was revealed. It looked as if it was in constant pain, no doubt from its current living conditions in the Reaper's stomach. With little finesse, the Reaper threw the soul at the coffin and Hashirama entered and took control of Orochimaru's body. All of this went unseen by Jiraiya as the coffin was sealed, and the Reaper began to fade away. I will absorb their souls in 6 hours' time, beware of my return. Jiraiya could only nod in silence as the Reaper disappeared, leaving him alone with the coffin. He turned towards it now, to see the final act of a dreadful play. With a sickening creak, the wooden hinges came off and the coffin's lid began to fall forward to reveal the contents. As if to heighten the suspense, a wind blew from the coffin and snuffed the flames of all the candles, leaving Jiraiya in the dark. A loud crack echoed around the room when the lid hit the ground and made Jiraiya scramble to find light. Holding up a ram hand sign, Jiraiya focused his chakra and created a small flame in the palm of his hand. He held it up towards the coffin to try and catch a peek but found it too weak. Feeling as if the suspense was killing him, Jiraiya spoke softly to try and rouse the attention of the figure occupying the coffin. Orochimaru, is that you? Was it a success? The figure took a step forward, somewhat stumbling as it got used to walking again after so much time. Jiraiya's eyes widened when a deep, warm voice began to fill the room. It wasn't the cold, hissing of Orochimaru's usual speech pattern. It could only mean one outcome. Orochimaru? No. My name is Hashirama Senju. The fire fully illuminated the figure now as he stepped into range, a smile splaying over the wizened Kage's features. Perhaps you can tell my why, or even how, I have been summoned again after being sealed into the death god's stomach? Jiraiya gulped. He had never spoken to the first Hokage before. Hell, he had only seen his face in pictures and heard about him in school or from his sensei. The man was kind though, it radiated off of him like heat from a candle. There was no doubt in the Sanin's mind why people chose him to be the leader of Konoha. His charisma was off the charts. Shodai-sama. Jiraiya could barely say anything, still in shock over the ordeal. The first seemed to notice this and his smile increased. I see that you must be a leaf shinobi. The will of fire burns bright in you. Perhaps you can tell me why I am here and then we can go from there. Jiraiya nodded dumbly. His mind needed a stimulus to work himself out of shock. I summoned the death god to work out a deal to bring you back for a short time. The village of Konoha is in danger, great danger. I hate to release you so suddenly, Hokage, but our enemy is not a normal one. We need your special abilities to have victory. Hashirama's eyes widened in surprise and then narrowed, realizing just how serious it was. I see. If you went through all this trouble to get me here, I can only guess that this is truly a danger. Tell me though, who is this enemy? Jiraiya's eyes narrowed and Hashirama tried to guess the man's thought process. Nothing could have prepared him though for the answer. Madara Uchiha. Hashirama was frozen solid. He couldn't believe that his old rival's name would be brought up, let alone be told that he was alive. But, I killed Madara at the Valley of the End. How can he be alive? Jiraiya sighed. If only the first really had killed him back then, it would have saved everyone a lot of trouble. It seems he was able to live through that battle and now he is endangering the world with a plot of world domination. The reason why I summoned you though wasn't because he is our enemy, it's what he is using against us is what troubles me. Hashirama caught on but again could only look at Jiraiya with shock. He is using the tailed beasts? They should all be inside Jinchuuriki by now though, how can he harness their power? It didn't make any sense. Madara had always been a genius, but to go as far as to learn how to pull beasts from their containers was such a sadistic jutsu. I don't understand how he was able to learn how, but he has so far captured 4 Jinchuuriki and their tailed beasts. He is preparing to use them against Konoha and you, and I need to go stop them. Again Hashirama was overwhelmed with the sheer level of information being spoken to him. 4 tailed beasts. That is, I can't believe it. My old nemesis really does mean to bury Konoha because of his hate. 4 tailed beasts. Hashirama was mumbling to himself, still in disbelief. Jiraiya was about to rouse him from his musings when the man looked into his eyes with a very stern look, somewhat surprising him. I understand, let's get going. I will stop him, it is my fault it has gotten this bad in the first place. Jiraiya nodded and led him out of the room and out into the base. We have to hurry, there is no telling when the attack will start, and we are many miles away. Hashirama silently cursed as he followed Jiraiya, trying his best to figure out a plan of attack. His eyes widened when the thought of his necklace came up. The last he remembered was giving it to Tsunade. Boy, what has happened to my necklace? Last I remember it was in the hands of my granddaughter, Tsunade. Jiraiya looked to him and thought about it for a second, remembering that Naruto had already given it back to her. Tsunade was crushed after that and couldn't find it in herself to wear it. She kept it in the desk inside the Hokage office. It's in Konoha, we can get it there. Hang in there, Gramps. I am on my way. Land of Fire. Kirigakure outskirts. Madara's staging area. Madara stood on a tree branch, silently waiting for the sealing process to finish. Around each strategically placed was at least a dozen shinobi, all holding scrolls in their mouths and whispering incantations as they went through hand signs. A circle drawn in blood surrounded each large pot. The symbols were lighting up in an eerie green as the tailed beasts were slowly pulled out from the containers. Hitsuji Saru, Hitsuji, Uma, Mi, Tori, Mi, Hitsuji, Tora, Na Yu, Saru, Hitsuji, Mi, Tatsu, Inu, Tatsu, Tori, Yu, Hitsuji, Saru, Uma, Sara. Their endless chants droned in Madara's ears. A lesser man would have gone insane with annoyance. Madara zoned it all out with sheer excitement. Soon, oh very soon. Yu na Tora, Hitsuji, Hitsuji, Tora, Saru, Mi, Hitsuji. Tailed beast container, release. The men removed their scrolls from their mouths and then placed them in the corresponding positions on the glowing circle in front of them. The light intensified and raced towards the pots that were in the center of each ring. The kanji that indicated their numbers lit up and the tops of the pots began to creak open. Tailed beast energy leaked out of each one as the men scrambled to find some distance. The heavy release of energy cracked the ground and sent fissures coursing through the dirt. Gale force winds began to blow as the chakra began to take a corporeal shape in the world. Madara watched as the 4-tailed beasts soon to be under his control manifested in their beastly forms, easily towering over the forest they were summoned in. That's it! Come on out to play, tailed beasts! Look into my eyes and feel the control of the Sharingan. With their attention grabbed, Madara placed the simple beasts under a genjutsu of control. Sharingans replaced their pupils as the tailed beasts fell sway to his control with ease. As it was only a short way to Konoha, Madara felt the urge to walk there with his pets obediently following behind. It would be grand entrance that kicked off the even grander demise of the village hidden in the leaf. His men scrambled and tried their best to stay out of the beast's path as they began their monstrous stampede towards Konoha. Each footstep a mini earthquake was heard and felt. With the amount of energy released from the summoning, it is only a matter of time before the leaf sends squads to check it out. No matter. I will just have the men under my command deal with them. They are nothing but flies compared to the beasts I hold under my control now. Sir, Konoha squads are coming. What should we do? One of his men shouted out to him, frightened towards the summons but even more worried about the response from Konoha. Go and eliminate them. Nothing can stand in the way of the beast's advance. The Kiri shinobi dispersed, and soon clacks and flashes of light could be seen in the distant foliage, evidence the battle had already begun. Time to test out their abilities. What better way to start this off but with a bang? The Seven Tails, a large rhinoceros beetle with wings for tails, brought its head up and slammed its horns right into the ground where the battle was taking place. Compared to the earthquakes from their steps, the utter chaos created from the head, but that ripples of the shock wave were sent in all directions of the continent. Tsunami-like waves formed in the oceans many miles away, and entire villages that happened to be nearby were demolished in an instant. Konoha had its warning, the chakra monsters had arrived. As Madara strode past the huge crater, he saw the bodies and crushed remains of what were once his forces. He merely shook his head and continued on, a worthy sacrifice for his ambitions. Kirigakure. Hokage's home. Office. Koharu and Hamura were inside the Hokage's office, looking after things while she was away. It had been relatively quiet since she had left a few days ago, leaving the advisors with little to do but stand around and think. While they did not necessarily enjoy the aspect of allying with the other villages, either could say it wasn't a good idea considering situation they were in facing Akatsuki. Also, without the deterrent of owning the Nine Tails Jinchuuriki, they were without the power they once had. Reflecting on Naruto, they still held by the belief that it would be a better idea to reel him back in and hold him inside the village. While it would be next to impossible now that he had gone and re-established Uzushio, it was only right the Nine Tails remained with Konoha and the Land of Fire. A young boy like him did not understand such power or the qualities needed to be a Kage. He was nothing but an impostor and a disgrace to the title in their eyes. But, as mere advisors and retired shinobi, they had little influence on the workings of current Konoha. With their biggest supporter Danzo gone and joined with Akatsuki, they had little choice but to follow through with the Hokage's thinking. They could only hope it would not ultimately destroy them in the end. Koharu, when shall we have Kakashi Hataki's execution scheduled? Hamura suddenly asked the elderly woman, breaking the silence between them for quite some time. Perhaps after Akatsuki is defeated? Then again, that could be too long from now. His death will hopefully garner further support in the effort to recapture the Nine Tails Jinchuuriki from Yuzu. It has to be timed right if we wish to succeed. Hamura nodded. He began to write a few notes down on a scroll before stuffing it back into his robe. It shouldn't be long before the Hokage returns. We can discuss it with her and see how the alliance is preparing to deal with Akatsuki. I believe a swift move is necessary against Madara, otherwise he will wriggle from our grasp again. Koharu nodded in agreement to his words and looked out the window to the village, noticing the darkening clouds coupled with the late evening made the entire sky seem black. A sudden shaking hit the room and both had trouble finding purchase in staying up. Koharu found her balance with the windowsill and chair while Hamura was forced to his knees by the earthquake. As suddenly as it began though, the quake ended, leaving the elders confused as to the reason behind such a rare phenomenon. It was answered quickly by the elder-toed couple who had just entered the office in a puff of smoke. Madara Uchiha is here. He has brought his tailed beast to destroy Konoha. You must prepare yourselves. Fukasaku quickly yelled out in warning, out of breath from going at full speed to get to Konoha in record time. The elders looked at them with confused expressions. They were not sure they heard right. Madara Uchiha was there? With tailed beasts? The Toad's theory was quickly backed up when an ANBU arrived and knelt before the two elders. "Report!" Hamura ordered, a certain edge to his voice as his mind began to fret over the few possibilities of what really happened. Either it really was a natural occurrence, or something very powerful created it. The question is, though, which one is it? I dearly hope it is the former. Hamura-sama, Koharu-sama, 4 extremely large chakra signatures have been felt to be approaching the village from the north. We believe it has something to do with the recent earthquake that hit the village. We have no visual of the source of the chakra, though. The advisors exchanged glances as they knew that the Toads were right. Madara had come. "This is no natural occurrence, Hamura," Koharu warned, turning towards the ANBU and began to speak with an orderly tone. "Put the village on a level 1 emergency. All available shinobi teams should head to the north wall and prepare to sortie against the incoming enemy forces. Have Shizen prepare the medical corps and get the hospital prepped. There will be many wounded coming in." The ANBU seemed startled from the amount of orders but knew not to question, only to obey. "Yes, ma'am." He saluted and disappeared in a blur, leaving Hamura to summon a few more shinobi. "The village is under a level 1 emergency. Move to the academy and residential districts and begin to evacuate the children and civilians to the mountains. Tell everyone you can see and make sure the teams heading to the safe houses have their barrier scrolls with them. We can't afford to have them endangered from a stray jutsu." The shinobi saluted and disappeared to fulfill the orders, leaving both advisors to slump in sudden exhaustion as their minds caught up with adrenaline. "Fukasaku-sama, will your Toads aid us in battle? I am afraid without you, we have little hope without the Hokage here. The best our shinobi can do is to delay them as they did the 9 Tails." Fukasaku nodded to Hamura's request and began to head out the door. "Yes, I will bring Gamabunta and the others to the north gate with a summoning. I will let you know now that other than your Hokage, more reinforcements are coming. We just have to hold out long enough. Make sure you get as many people as you can to safety. Come on, Shima." The two Toads left the advisors to their own devices as the village scrambled to defend themselves against an invincible enemy. Kirigakure. Uzumaki compound. Mei awoke in the early morning, nearly midnight, to a slight tremor that shook her bed. It was barely noticeable, but for people like Mei who are light sleepers, it was an instant wake-up call. She was about to get out of bed to investigate when a light breeze told her she had no clothes on, and quickly placed her discarded robe on. Looking over to wake up Naruto, she was sadly reminded he was not in bed with her, and she continued on alone. She got up from bed and went to Rashi's room immediately, only a few steps down the hall from her own. Mei found him still asleep, albeit he did look angry with a frown on his face. With him safe, Mei went back to her own room and opened the balcony door to look outside. The rain was still going, but it was much lighter now and she could easily see outside. What she saw completely stumped her in surprise and confusion. Dozens of shinobi, mostly ANBU, were running around the compound, opening doors to homes and positioning themselves around the compound. Curious as to what was going on, Mei went to her closet and put on her usual ninja attire, a tight robe that went down to her thighs with pink shorts and armbands that matched her robe. Running out of the house, she was immediately engaged by 3 shinobi. 2 were hurricanes, the bodyguards of the Uzushio and his family, while the other was a masked man with a red robe covering his body. Mei felt somewhat better seeing Ao on the scene. He was a level-headed man, and chances were that if he had given the order for the men to be there, it was with good reason. "Mei-sama, it is good to see that you are all right. It would probably be better if you went back to bed, though." Mei crossed her arms as a subtle show of dominance that she would not do as he asked, instead responding with a question. "I just woke up, what's going on here? Why have the ANBU been deployed to the compound? This is private property." She reminded the ANBU general, the clans were completely entitled to their privacy, and as a rule of thumb shinobi not of that clan had no business being on the grounds. "I'm sorry, Mei-sama, but there has been an incident inside the compound. I have received orders from the Uzushio himself to sequester the ANBU and medical teams here until we receive word to do otherwise." Mei's eyes widened in surprise upon hearing the order was given by Naruto and calmed down somewhat, uncrossing her arms and relaxing. She still wanted to know what the incident was though. What exactly happened, or do you even know? Ao sighed and shrugged. Well, it appears as though an infiltrator by the name of Sasuke Uchiha entered the village in an attempt to kill the Uzukage. Mei lightly gasped at the information, bringing a hand to her mouth to cover it. But he was intercepted by an unknown friendly shinobi and led away from the village. Naruto said he trusted the person, so I have no reason to doubt him. The only thing is that we have yet to see this shinobi or the Uchiha, so it is impossible to confirm what either of their statuses are. Mei took the information in and stood there in silence, unsure of what to make of it. So I can guess that my husband made a stop to speak to you before going off to train then? Ao suddenly jerked his head towards her in surprise, wondering how she knew. He nodded in affirmation. Yes, that's right. He gave me 2 scrolls, one with orders to fulfill and the other to give to the beast tamers. I already handed over the scroll to Akaru. All that's left is to open up his orders. I haven't yet because his last orders to me were to make sure you and Rashi remained safe. I have been up all night watching the house. Mei smiled at that, glad to hear Naruto's concern for her and Rashi even when he had other pressing matters to concern himself with. Right, come in the house with me and let me see the scroll. The 3 masked shinobi fell into step behind her, and they entered the Uzumaki kitchen. Mei dismissed the 2 hurricanes with a subtle hand gesture, sending both of them to the entrance of the kitchen as guards. Ao took off his mask and rubbed his eye before he took out the scroll with the Uzukage stamp on it. He handed it over to the Kage-level woman and watched as she touched it with a finger and inserted some chakra into it, opening the scroll and allowing Mei to read. Ao, these orders must be accomplished as soon as possible. This war will be over very soon, one way or the other, so we must prepare for the final battle. I need you to get messenger birds out to every single one of our allies who have pledged military support to us. We can expect AIM to arrive soon as they are being led by one of the Akatsuki defectors. We need to rally our own forces so that we may finish Madara. While I would like to speak again with the 4-village alliance, I doubt it would get us anywhere and I have little time for rhetoric. As they underestimate me because of my age, I cannot doubt that I will get little accomplished. Instead, we must rely on our own strength to win the day, even if it means we must do so without the support of the elemental nations. Send messenger birds to Crescent Island, Bear Country, Land of Waterfalls. Make sure that at the end of 2 weeks, you prepare our armies and march for Kiri. I am almost positive that Madara will make his final stand there, to which we will meet his forces with our own. When you get there, make sure Akaru uses that scroll I had you give him. It will bring me and all the lava monkeys to battle. Hopefully by that time, I will have finished my training. The fate of the world, no matter how cliché it sounds, indeed rests on me being summoned to fight, so do not forget. Also be sure to keep an eye on my family. I am worried about them when I can't be there to protect them. It would be best to allow Mei to be in temporary command of the village. She is most likely more cut out for it than either of us. Please allow her to read this as well. Shodai Uzukage. Naruto Uzumaki. What does it say, ma'am? Ao asked politely, as it seemed to be a long message. It was no doubt extremely important. Mei placed the scroll on the island counter and allowed Ao to pick it up and read. Her stern, Kage look had resurfaced over her face as she prepared to once again lead a village to war. It seems my husband has left me behind to do his dirty work while he is away. I suppose it is the least I can do for him, while he risks his life training in some volcano. Come on, Ao, you can read that on the way. Ao looked up from the scroll in curiosity as Mei began to leave the kitchen. He quickly got up from his seat and followed her out the door and towards the front door to the house. What do you mean, ma'am? Where are we going? Mei turned around and pointed towards the 2 hurricanes that were beginning to follow. You will remain here. Gather the rest of your squad and protect my child while I am away. If anything happens, I will be in the Uzukage Tower. Come along, Ao, we have much work to do. The 2 hurricanes looked at one another and shrugged, setting off to follow their orders. Ao just nodded to her request and placed his mask back on as they exited the building into the rain. He handed her a spare robe that was made for ANBU traveling, and she quickly placed it on, protecting her clothing from the rain. Let's move! The two disappeared in a blur towards the Uzumaki tower in the center of the village. They had a village to run. Land of Iron. Iron Fortress. Kage Summit. During the opening throes of Madara's attack on Konoha, the Kage of the elemental nations were embattled with root shinobi at the summit. It was one last deterrent to keep the strongest ninja and their troops from coming to aid Konoha, even if it meant sacrificing Akatsuki's special forces. While it would most likely not kill the Kage, it would most certainly delay them, and that was all the Uchiha could have asked for. Damn it! Get out of my way! A blasted through a few root shinobi that had teamed up against the Raikage. Before they could finish their hand signs, A smashed into them with his lightning-enhanced taijutsu. Hee, boss sure can take care of business with just one arm. Darui muttered out, grunting in exertion from holding back a root officer's tanto with his butcher sword. C glared at him as he knocked another would-be assassin away from the Raikage's blind spot. Shut up and fight, Darui! The white-haired man shrugged and pushed the officer back, keeping him on the defensive as the Kumo shinobi prepared to finish him. Akatsuki created a golem of earth and had it become his partner, as he fought off a large number of root forces, obviously teaming up on the larger guy. The golem picked up one hapless soldier that attempted to strike at Akatsuchi's flank and smashed him into the floor. Going through hand signs, Akatsuchi aimed his new jutsu at a few enemies that were beginning to charge at the Tsuchikage. Earth release, earth spikes! A few spikes were created from the stone tile floor and impaled a few root, while causing the rest to dodge. Anoki glared at the boy as he scrambled to defend himself after trying to help the Tsuchikage. Akatsuchi! Stop worrying about me and watch your own back! The younger man stuttered off an affirmative, as he dodged more attacks while Anoki turned back to his foe, a particularly savvy shinobi amongst root known for his dangerous hidden jutsu. Now time to finish you off, you little squat! Dust release, swift decomposition! The Tsuchikage created a cloud of dust and sent it flying at Torian, forcing him to dodge the tiny particles. He spared a look over his shoulder to see some of it touch the wall behind him, and it acted like an eraser, completely disintegrating the wall. He whistled in admiration and turned back to the Kage. Looks like I'll have to be careful around you. He charged forward and removed his glove, trying to lay a hand on the Tsuchikage's face only to be warded away by the lingering dust in the air. He was however able to lay a hand on the Tsuchikage's cloak, forcing him to quickly release it as it was infested with nano-bugs capable of eating his skin. The body of a crushed root soldier flew over the short-stature man and looked to see Tsunade slightly huffing in exhaustion. Around her lay multiple craters and bodies of wrecked soldiers who had attempted to face her in close combat only to fail. The Tsuchikage saw that the room was beginning to get too chaotic with all the fighting in such a small space and felt it was necessary to change the scenery. If you want to fight me, you'll have to follow. Anoki ran out into the hallway and sure enough was rewarded with a few root soldiers including Torian ready to fight him. You made a mistake separating yourself from your bodyguard, old man. Torian taunted, emphasizing his age as his compatriots prepared their attacks. Anoki grew a tick on his forehead and went through hand signs, an angry scowl on his lips. We'll just see about that, kiddo, you just underestimated me. Earth release, wall crush! The walls in the hallway began to move and suddenly launched towards one another, attempting to squish the men in between. Only Torian was able to escape from the attack but soon found himself in great pain. He looked on his back to find it disintegrating from dust and looked back at the old man for an explanation. Anoki smirked as the boy found out his collaboration jutsu with dust and earth release. From the two walls slamming together, a small amount of dust kicked out from the impact point. You thought you were safe when you jumped out, but in reality you were still in my trap. Learn to respect your elders in the afterlife, it's the least you can do. Torian by that point in time had completely disintegrated into dust, allowing Anoki to view the carnage back in the meeting hall. Gaara and Temari were fighting in the stands with her using wind jutsu to slice up those that got too close, while Gaara used his sand to defend them from attacks and crush the root forces that got too close. Sakura was fighting a blonde root member who wielded the double-bladed tanto, and the samurai were fending off the soldiers near Mifune where he and A had stood near each other. Shin! Fu yelled out, sending his consciousness into Sakura's to take over her body only to find a lot of resistance. What is this? Does she have a split personality? Inner Sakura began to fight with him in her mindscape, clearly overwhelming him through sheer surprise. As he attempted to escape back to his body, Tsunade made her way to Sakura and smashed a root soldier who was attempting to take advantage of Fu's attack on her mind. She easily stopped his attack and ran over to Fu's body, kicking it into a wall and forcing Fu into full unconsciousness when he finally returned to his body. As the battle wound down to just a few root soldiers left, Tsunade personally confronted Danzo. The man had already removed his unneeded clothes, revealing both his Sharingan arm and his eye. The Hokage also noticed with interest that the arm Naruto had gotten rid of was still missing, meaning the man couldn't use a majority of his ninjutsu. It didn't matter much though, the man was already tired and had used most of his abilities already to little effect. Give it up, Danzo, this battle is over, she announced, trying her best to make him see reason and give up. All he did was smile and chuckle. Oh no, Tsunade, you see, this battle was only a diversion. I'm sure you already knew that thanks to the messenger, but you should also know that Konoha is finished. My part is over. Tsunade gritted her teeth in anger and balled her fists up so much she began to draw blood from her nails, biting into her skin. It didn't make any sense why Danzo would do this to Konoha. He loved his village. Why, Danzo? I thought you loved Konoha? Why go this far? Was this part of your plan? Before Danzo could answer, Ace smashed into him with his fist and sent the man flying back into a wall. It doesn't matter, Tsunade. What matters is getting to Konoha and finishing Madara. See, Darui, we are leaving. The Reikage collected his things and headed out with his bodyguards, intent on raising the alarm in Kumo. Well, I suppose we'll get going too. Come on, Akatsuchi. The Tsuchikage beckoned his bodyguard, who quickly picked up the struggling man and placed him on his shoulders before running out of the room. We shall as well. Our forces will head to Konoha as soon as possible, though I fear we will be too late. Gaara and Temari disappeared in a gust of wind and disintegrated into sand. Tsunade went closer to Danzo's form, wanting to investigate something. She had seen something off about his left eye, the normal one right before he was finished off by A. When she approached, she could find nothing off about it, confusing her further. What did I see? I thought for sure it looked like a dash. Tsunade-sama, we need to get moving. Sakura's warning awoke her from her thoughts, and she quickly picked up her fallen jacket and left the meeting place to return to Konoha. Hang on, I'm coming, Konoha. Yuza Island. Mountain of Fire. Very good, Uzumaki-sama. I can feel your chakras. They are completely still, even with your proximity to the volcano. Naruto said nothing. His eyes were closed in quiet concentration as he remained perfectly still with his chakra calmed. Yes, I think I have mastered this part of the exercise, Naruto said as he slowly opened his eyes and stood up, bringing the monkeys to stand up as well. It looks like it is time for the second part of the first phase. We must enter the mouth of the volcano. Yamusha noted and Naruto nodded, indicating with a hand gesture that Yamusha lead the way. Naruto-sama, are you sure you are ready to go in? All the other humans went straight to the next part and died from burns. Are you sure you can handle the flames? Naruto nodded in affirmative and explained his confident attitude. While it will take some getting used to in a different spot, I think I can handle the lava. While I was training with calming my chakra, I developed a passive way of relieving my back from the searing heat of the volcano. I enveloped my backside in a small casing of Kyuubi's chakra, as it is separate from mine, therefore it was usable at the same time as me calming my normal chakra. Yamusha and the others were astounded at Naruto's chakra control. To be able to use his two types of chakra in two different ways at the same time was no easy feat for anyone, not even other Jinchuuriki. I see, no other human that attempted the lava training could do that, so we never considered it. Very nice thinking, Naruto-sama. Yamera complimented, to which Naruto nodded in appreciation. Their party continued to delve down into the volcano until they reached a ledge that was as close as they could get to the lava without touching it. Shots of lava would spurt up and occasionally land nearby, forcing Naruto to shy away from the dangerous fluid. "It is time, Naruto-sama. Please sit down here to mediate. We will stay with you and do our best to get you somewhere safe should something go wrong," Yamusha said to the Uzukage, and Naruto moved to his spot and sat down, closing his eyes in concentration. He began to calm his chakra down while slowly tugging on Kyuubi's reservoirs, forming that chakra in the rough shape of a protective barrier on his back. To someone with a keen eye, they could just barely make out the orange-red chakra that had formed on Naruto's back. Others would be able to feel the demonic chakra seeping from it. Kyuubi sat in his cage, waiting and waiting for the kid to finish taking his chakra. It had felt the tug the first time the boy had attempted the shield and came up with a devilish idea. While he had sat idly by for 18 years, the fox had finally found a way to free himself. All it would take would be a little incentive for Naruto to use more of his chakra. He began to cackle evilly as a particularly powerful bunch of lava shot up. "I think someone is about to get burnt to a crisp." Naruto's eye jolted open when a particularly powerful shot of lava slammed right into his back and began to burn it, not enough to be fatal but enough to hurt. Naruto screamed in pain and lost his concentration, forcing him to take out more of Kyuubi's chakra and lose focus on his own. Cursing, Naruto did his best to get back under control when more lava hit his back, forcing him into unconsciousness from the sheer amount of pain. The lava monkeys grew concerned and pulled him away from the edge. They had noticed he was taking too much demon chakra and felt it best to take him back to the mouth of the volcano. Naruto awoke in front of Kyuubi's cage. His dazed expression was quickly wiped away when he noticed the state of his subconscious. The entire boiler room was glowing red and Kyuubi's cage was bright with orange-red chakra, threatening to break through. The bars that made up the cage were being slammed into with the fox's body. The strong steel was slowly beginning to twist and bend. Worst of all, Naruto saw the seal paper beginning to come off as a sure sign of his seal weakening. Naruto ran forward and attempted to hold the paper in place to stop the fox's advance. He was just barely able to withstand each hit the fox did on the cage, and keep standing, but he saw that the seal would most definitely not hold for long. With one last strong push, the fox broke the seal and pushed Naruto far across the room. It roared out a challenge and charged forward as if to eat Naruto. The Uzukage for once found an enemy that even he could not handle alone, and prepared to face the wrath of his Biju. Damn it! How could he get this strong so fast? Was he really analyzing the seal all this time, just waiting for the right time to break out? What am I supposed to do? Just hold on, Naruto. The voice echoed out from the dark part of the room behind him, and he turned to look over his shoulder to find the source of the feminine voice. Suddenly, dozens of chakra chains came from the darkness and latched onto the Kyuubi, restraining his powerful form with ease. The fox seemed to know the chakra and gritted his teeth in anger, fighting against the subduing chakra. "Damn you, Kushina!" Naruto froze at the mention of his mother's name, and turned to see a beautiful red-headed woman walk out from the darkness. "Mom, is that you?" Kushina looked down at her son who was still lying on the ground and smiled. "Yes, I am Naruto, but you will have to wait a while before we get to talk. Your father has to finish resealing Kyuubi." Naruto's eyes widened at the word father, and he turned back at the cage to find the Kyuubi to be inside, restrained by chains. "I hate to see you again, Fox. But at least I got to see my son again because of your greed." A voice came from behind Naruto and he turned around again to see his father, Minato Namikaze, standing next to his mother, a warm smile on his face as he looked at Naruto with pride. "Dad!" Naruto quickly picked himself up and stood face to face with his parents, not completely believing what he was seeing. "Yep, it's us, Naruto. Just let me reset your seal to fix those bars." Naruto tugged his shirt up and it allowed Minato to reset the bleeding ink, reforming it to its original form. "That's the last time I can do that, Naruto. It'll be up to you to fix the seal from now on." Naruto nodded and just stood there awkwardly not knowing what to say. "So," Minato sensed the awkwardness too and together with his son scratched the back of his head in embarrassment. My son, the first Uzukage. I guess you're following your old man, huh? Minato mumbled out in pride only to have Kushina punch him in the shoulder. Of course he was gonna be a Kage, that was like obvious. Kushina retorted only to grab her mouth with both hands when she realized she made her unusual speech impediment. She was surprised when Naruto laughed and pointed at her. Haha! I used to do the same thing when I was younger. Kushina at first pouted in anger at his playful jibe but soon began to laugh with her family, as it finally began to sink in that they were reunited. I can't believe you guys are here right now, this is just incredible. Minato suddenly got serious after Naruto's remark and set a hand on his son's shoulder, surprising him. Naruto, we can't be here for long. Repairing the seal wasn't the only reason we appeared. Naruto gulped and looked at both his parents, curious as to just what they had to say. Chapter 31. A Jinchuuriki Sacrifice, Konoha's Pervy Sage. Arc, Yuzuno Kuni, 6th Elemental Nation. Naruto's Mindscape. Kyuubi's Cage. We aren't just here to reset the seal, there are some important things you need to know. Minato alerted his son. He didn't want to spoil the reunion but they had little time to spare. What is it, Mom, Dad? Naruto shifted his eyes to either of them back and forth, waiting for one to speak up. Being Uzukage made him learn to be attentive and analytic. He was ready for whatever they had to say. Minato shared a glance with Kushina before looking back at his son. A frown had settled on his features. Naruto, do you know the leader of Akatsuki? Naruto's eyes widened and then narrowed, nodding in response. Yeah, well, I've heard of him at least. His name is Madara Uchiha. He's responsible for what the state of crisis the world is in today. I'm training to try and stop him, so I can bring the world peace. Minato and Kushina were both surprised at how much they knew was already common knowledge, and Minato smiled at his son. Wow, look at that! My son's already 2 steps ahead of me. Well, I can tell you this, Naruto, that man was the same person that led Kyuubi to attack Konoha the night you were born. Naruto's eyes widened again as this was new information to him. What? But that would mean... Naruto stopped talking when he saw his father's figure begin to fade. His chakra had run out. Minato knew what was happening all too well and felt horrible he couldn't stay longer, cursing his luck one last time. I'm sorry, Naruto. It looks like this is the end of the line for me. Kushina had more chakra in her part of the seal, so she can stay longer. We're counting on you, Naruto. Make me proud. His voice became faint as he slowly disappeared from the mortal plane, leaving behind a saddened Kushina and a confused Naruto. Naruto felt a pang in his heart as he watched his father leave. It was definitely not enough time for either to get acquainted with each other. He balled his fists up tightly to hold back his tears of anger. The fate of his destiny was too much to know when he had to acknowledge in front of his eyes both of his parents were dead. Kushina seemed to know what he was thinking and turned to him, placing a hand over her heart. Naruto, I know you grew up without a parent's love, but you don't have to feel empty anymore. That love you wanted has always been right here. I just never got to show you. Naruto looked at his mother with tears welling up, this time with sadness to know how much both he and his parents had wanted to do together and never got the chance. Mom! Kushina was taken by surprise when Naruto practically tackled her, enveloping her in a tight hug that sent warmth flowing through both. She smiled and wrapped her arms around him, silently basking in the feeling of holding her grown-up son. He was tall and very handsome, from which she hoped her son was able to find someone good for him. She absently wondered if he read her notes left behind for him. It was her one last way of speaking to him before that night. Naruto, my baby boy, you're so handsome. Naruto leaned out of the hug to look his mother in her eyes, silently enjoying her praise. Thanks, Mom, you look pretty good yourself. Kushina brought a hand to her mouth and stifled a giggle. She soon brought herself to sit down and Naruto followed suit. Well, thank you, Naruto. I was always afraid you would have my crazy red hair, but I'm glad you got your father's blonde locks. Too bad you have my rounded face, though. Kushina's gaze took a far-off look as she seemed to remember something in her past. I was made fun of so much because of that. Naruto scratched the back of his head and smiled. Oh come on, Mom, even if I didn't get your red hair and got your face, I think I would have looked good with both. I mean, my wife has beautiful red hair and our son. Naruto whistled in appreciation to how vibrant his red hair looked as it began to thicken. Kushina's head did a quick snap towards him, so much so that Naruto thought she would get whiplash. What? You have a wife and son? Naruto was taken away by how loud she was yelling and nodded, going limp as Kushina grabbed his shoulders and began to shake him uncontrollably. Tell me about them. Is she nice? Does she feed you your favorite food? Does the baby look like you or her? What's her name? What's his? Naruto was taken aback by her quickfire Q&A but did his best to answer. Well, my wife's name is Mei Uzumaki and our son's name is Rashi. My wife is very loving and caring, but she can be scary when she needs to be. A shiver ran down Naruto's spine as he remembered all the times she threatened him when he did something wrong. She actually isn't so great at cooking, so we cook together. It's a lot of fun. Actually, that reminds me of this one time where Mei and I were in the kitchen where I was making ramen, and she was preparing something for Rashi and I. Kushina watched as her son rambled on in his own world with a smile. If he could be so happy with just a single memory of his family, then he must have truly been happy with them. I'm so glad he was able to find someone. That was what scared me the most. Without a parent's love, a woman's love was the only substitute, I thought. I guess having a family of his own is a step up. Naruto noticed that he had begun to ramble and stopped talking, instead looking at his mom, who was just staring at him with a small smile on her face. What is it? Do I have something on my face? Kushina just shook her head and placed a hand on his shoulder, confusing him. You've made us so proud, Naruto. You've gone so far without us, just as we had hoped. But I think it's best you know what really happened during the Kyuubi's attack. Kushina's face hardened with a frown, and Naruto noticed, feeling that it was time to get serious. I always wanted to know exactly what happened that night. No one ever had the real details, and the third never did tell me anything. Who else better to ask than my parents, though, right? Kushina nodded but at first did not say anything, leading Naruto to grow impatient. Naruto, there is something you have to know before I begin the story. This piqued his curiosity and brought him closer to the woman, waiting for the answer. What? Kushina swallowed her nervousness and looked her son in the eyes and with pure confidence revealed her secret. I was the second Jinchuuriki of the 9 tails, just as you are the third. That night the fox was taken from me by that masked man, Madara Uchiha. Naruto's eyes widened and his jaw slowly dropped in surprise. His mother was the previous Jinchuuriki? What? But how is that possible? Kushina then began to tell the story of what happened that fateful night, and Naruto listened and hung off every word, still not quite believing it until the end. Come on, I already recited the pained speech in the story with my own compressed version. This would take too long. Go read the latest chapters. I'm probably already spoiling it enough if you haven't read from 497 and onwards. Both mother and son were standing now as the tale came to an end of that fateful night. The amount of time that had passed couldn't be remembered by either, but it didn't matter. This was the last chance either had to bond with one another, no matter what the circumstance, and both made sure to enjoy every last second. And just like that, your father was able to seal the fox within you and still had the strength to implant our chakra into the seal. He was amazing that night. Kushina finished her tale, ending it on a lighter note to the relatively dark story. She looked to see Naruto staring at her as if he expected more. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to bore you with the little details. I tend to do that sometimes. She silently berated herself as she scratched her head in embarrassment for her verbal tic emerging again, only to have Naruto slowly begin to smile. You didn't bore me at all, Mom. Thanks for telling me, everything. It makes me feel better knowing the whole story, like the missing piece of a big puzzle I've been trying to wrap my head around. But one thing is for certain from all of this, I can't forgive Madara for what he's done to you and Dad, and I'll make sure to kill him. Myself. Kushina wasn't surprised by her son's reaction, but visibly was taken aback by his utter seriousness when he said it. Naruto, don't let the hate cloud your judgment. You've done a great job with your actions so far, don't let that hate grow inside of you like it did to your friend, Sasuke. Naruto's eyes widened and narrowed, making him look down at the ground in shame and nod. I'm so sorry though. For placing such a heavy burden we placed on you as parents, we aren't fit to be your mother and father. Naruto couldn't believe what he just heard and looked back at his mom with disbelief as she wiped her eyes from the endless tears flowing. Mom, don't apologize. I'll admit, it was pretty hard growing up as a Jinchuuriki, especially without parents. Kushina looked into his eyes, taking the slight recoil of shame she felt from what he said. Naruto continued on though. But the truth was, I never blamed the parents that I never had. I never blamed you. Kushina's eyes widened in shock, not expecting that from Naruto. Maybe I never received love from a parent, but now that I have my own family, I can forget those feelings of emptiness by replacing it with love for my family and country. I was able to manage as a child because of determination. That's something I think I got from you, Mom. He smiled at her, a genuine smile that could only make Kushina go silent and gape at her son. But it's alright now that I have that missing puzzle piece, I can be happy. 'Cause I know I'm alive because my parents gave their lives for me. It is a feeling that I have when I look at Mei and Rashi, a feeling of something I want to protect. So don't blame yourself, Mom. Naruto had his hands on his hips and a big smile on his face as he spoke his encouraging words. Kushina slowly moved a hand to her heart as she felt it was going to burst with emotion from the newly made tears forming in her gray orbs. 'Cause you filled me up with all that parental love before you sealed the 9 tails inside me. That's what made me grow up to be a healthy boy, what you see before you now. He pointed his thumbs to his chest with pride and Kushina allowed her tears to again flow with abandon. I'm glad I ended up being your son. Kushina extended her arms slowly towards her son and moved forward, as if to wrap him in a hug. Naruto watched with surprise and soon sad recognition as he saw her figure begin to fade away. Her chakra and time had run out. As her arms began to encircle around him one last time, her final words were mixed with happy sobs and a slight choke, but Naruto understood very clearly every word. Naruto. Minato, did you hear? Our love reached him, after all. Thank you for letting me be your mother, and for Minato being your father. Thank you, for being our son! Her last words were no louder than wisps of a slight breeze as she disappeared just as her lips landed on Naruto's cheek, a last farewell from a mother to her son. A tear fell from Naruto's eye as he closed his eyes and looked to see nothing. The warm embrace he had felt was gone from him now, but the warmth that radiated from his heart did not cease. He had never felt so at peace after speaking with his parents. It was as if some great obstacle that had held him back had now been lifted from his path. The space where his father had taken him, an infinite white plane that offered privacy within his own subconscious, began to fade away as its purpose was fulfilled. Naruto's eyes hardened as the 9 tails cage came into focus. The dark boiler room had calmed from the demon's fury and now looked normal. The chains had disappeared from the fox, leaving it to impatiently wait for the boy to come back from his pathetic reunion. So, you finally return. I hope seeing your dead parents was enlightening. The way it said that made Naruto want to end its life right there, even if he knew it was impossible. Keep laughing, Fox, I've got a surprise for you too. I know that you killed them, so don't even try and beat around the bush. The fox's smile disappeared and it huffed in resignation as its surprise was already found out. I understand now what my father meant when he said it was up to me to keep you contained from now on. He passed me the torch. This time, Fox. Kyubi looked into the boy's glaring eyes and felt something settle in its stomach, something he never thought he would feel. Trepidation. This time, I'm the one that is the jailer, and I'm going to make the jail your final destination. Naruto began to go through hand signs and the fox could feel something changing about the boy, something that did not spell well for him. Hoping to delay him, the fox's deep booming voice rumbled in the hollow room. What the hell are you planning, boy? You are nothing but a puny cage for me. I could have killed you when you were a child. Who the hell do you think you are? Naruto looked up from his preparations and stared the fox down right in the eye as he lifted his shirt up to reveal the 8 trigrams seal. My name is Naruto Uzumaki, the last Jinchuuriki I'll make sure you ever see. Naruto slammed his glowing hand into his seal and felt the air leave him as the feeling of vertigo reached him. Ultimate Uzumaki sealing style, 16 trigrams Jinchuuriki death prison. Around the 8 unique symbols that surrounded the swirl, 8 new ones began to form an outer circle that enveloped the original seal. The center swirl began to enlarge and looked much closer to the Uzumaki swirl as it thickened and finished wrapping in on itself. The most notable change was not on Naruto's person but the fox within the cage. As each new seal of the 16 trigrams formed, a spike was driven through a part of Kyuubi's body, causing him to howl in pain and frustration. Soon, the strategically placed spikes were now easily tethering him to the now smaller cage with further interlocking padlocks along with the original paper seal on the door. Naruto huffed in exhaustion and fell to the ground, feeling the need to sit was greater than to stand in triumph. The new seal he placed on himself was something he found in the second scroll within the vault, the one he did not at first open. It had never been used before as the Uzumaki had only been dealing with the sealing of the 9 tails. The 4 tails was allowed to roam free as it came and went. With the new seal, there was little chance of Kyuubi breaking out or interfering. In fact, Naruto could dare say it was impossible. The seal also made it so that the chakra of the Kyuubi could not escape Naruto's body when he died, forcing the beast to die with him. In the worst-case scenario of Akatsuki getting him, they would be unable to extract the beast within him. In the best case, Naruto could die at an old age and take the world's strongest chakra monster with him. The downside was though that the new seal was a strain on his life force and chakra to keep the Kyuubi contained so well. Even with his clan's known longevity and constitutions, Naruto doubted he could live over the age of 60. It was enough for him though to know he was not only sacrificing himself to save his country, his family, but the world as well. Well, I've taken care of Kyuubi. Now I just have one last deterrent to deal with before peace. Madara. Naruto willed himself to leave his subconscious and awaken. He had completed one hurdle only to face his latest challenge, surviving the lava training. Yuza Island. Mountain of Fire. Look, I think he is awakening Yomasha-sama. Naruto slowly began to sit up as he held his face with his hand, slowly opening up his eyes to see. The lava monkeys had formed a protective circle around him as they waited for him to awaken. The genuine concern on their faces was touching to Naruto. Yamusha, the leader in question, was especially viewing him with interest, and Naruto saw his shirt was still off, revealing his new seal. We watched it change while you were unconscious, Uzumaki-sama. Is there anything we should know? Naruto slowly stood up and began to move again towards the lip of the volcano. Yamera held out an arm in warning for him to stop. Wait, Naruto-sama, you just woke up. Don't push yourself. Naruto glanced over his shoulder and began to speak to the personal summons. I'm not as fragile as you might think, Yamera, so please do not consider me as such. I've taken care of the Kyuubi and have had a great epiphany to my destiny. I just have one last thing to do. Let's get to work. Without warning, Naruto leaped into the volcano, and the monkeys felt as if he had gone insane. They rushed to the edge to look over and found Naruto, standing on top of the lava without any problems. His hands were up against one another in a calming stance, and they could feel the chakra and heat calm and mix within him. This is... Yamera couldn't bring words to describe the Uzukage's actions. Yamusha finished it for him. Incredible. Konoha. Dungeons. Kakashi was wide awake, having felt the immense shock waves from some sort of earth tremor. Half of the cell block had collapsed. As the guard had no current orders and the structure was still structurally sound, Kakashi was to remain where he was. The stupidity of the man watching him was once again thought over by the silver-haired jounin when the door creaked open to his cell block. 2 men conversed. One was the voice of the guard which Kakashi had memorized, while the other was a seldom-heard messenger. They spoke in hushed yet panicked tones, and Kakashi could tell something was very wrong. His senses also felt strange, as if something incredibly powerful was bearing down on them, and its arrival imminent. I haven't felt something this powerful since the Nine Tails attack. You've got to be kidding me? Did these orders really come from the elders? The guard suddenly shouted, bringing Kakashi back into focus. Yes, you are to release Kakashi Hatake for emergency conscription duty. The village is in a level 1 emergency, and we need all the able-bodied shinobi we can get. The sad truth is, he is still one of our top jonin and shinobi of this village. Now let him out. As if music to Kakashi's ears, the guard ran over to his cell and quickly unlocked it, facing him down with his masked face. Get up, Kakashi! I'm sure you heard that guy. You are one lucky son of a bitch! The guard drawled sarcastically as he unhooked Kakashi's straitjacket and gave him a ninja pouch. Well, looks like I am pretty lucky. I don't have to listen to you bitch anymore. Before the guard could retort, Kakashi ripped the eye patch off and disappeared in a puff of smoke. Cursing quite loudly, the guard turned back to the messenger and shrugged his shoulders. The other man scratched the back of his head nervously. Damn, I know they said to let him out, but they also wanted guards to follow him. Think we can catch him? The ANB jailer shook his head, looking back at the spent eye patch on the ground. No way. I may not like him, but Kakashi Hatake was one of the best in ANBU and damn near one of the fastest. We wouldn't have stood a chance with a head start. The two men shrugged and headed out of the underground facility. The village needed shinobi now, and they had to answer the call. Kirigakure. Village outskirts. Yes, we are almost there. Madara thought to himself with glee as he continued his confident stride down the main dirt path that would lead straight to the north gate. The four-tailed beasts followed along to his flanks, crushing trees and anything that would stray into their paths. It was only a matter of time before the village would be in sight, then Madara could watch as it was destroyed in one fell swoop. If the Kyuubi wasn't enough, surely his brothers can finish what he couldn't. Without a meddling Hokage or stubborn Jinchuuriki this time, surely I cannot be defeated. Halt! Madara watched as a squad of Leaf ANBU, fully equipped and ready for action, appear in front of him and block his path. Are you the one controlling these things? They quickly brought out their katana and other weapons, preparing to fight him to halt his advance. Madara merely chuckled in amusement. What do you think? He asked with sarcasm dripping from his tongue. The rebuttal made the man flinch and gave Madara time to charge forward and grab onto him. With a simple movement of the neck, the man was sent screaming away to another dimension. His comrades quickly tried to retaliate, but their attacks went right through Madara, leaving them confused. Without giving them any time to readjust, the masked man disappeared into the ground and pulled them both under to suffocate. With one last member to go, Madara sent a few shuriken her way, forcing her to deflect them. As she did this, Madara charged forward and, avoiding her easy thrust towards him, sent a shattering punch to her throat, effectively making her suffocate to death in agony. With the obstacles out of his way, Madara continued on until he could see the Leaf Village on the horizon. Madara smirked and sent the Four Tails up first, its large red mane easily the most recognizable and intimidating. Destroy it, he said simply to bathe in the power he had over them. The Four Tails began to comply by opening its jaw and showing what appeared as a large cannon. From it erupted a concentrated shot of lava towards the village. It could easily cover an entire residential district in hot lava. The leaf wasn't down yet though, as Madara watched dozens of small water geysers launch up and begin to cool the hot earth as it approached. With narrowing eyes, he observed a large puff of smoke and downright glared at the new arrivals. Battle-toads the size of the Hokage monument had arrived to play. With one deft swipe of his sword, Gamabunta destroyed the cooled rock that had once made up the Four Tails' attack. The earth rained down onto the forest floor harmlessly, and it allowed the leaf to assess the situation with some room to breathe. The large toad shifted his pipe to one side of his mouth to the other, as he viewed the enemy contenders with barely hidden fear. Four-tailed beasts stood against them. He had brought along Gamaken and Gamahiro to fight alongside him, and they did have Elder Fukasaku and Shima's help, but things still did not look good. Crap. I hope Jiraiya gets here soon. We won't be able to keep them at bay forever. Fukasaku-sama! The great toad yelled out, bringing attention to the smaller elder that sat atop his head. When will Jiraiya get here? Can't you summon him? Fukasaku scratched his chin and shrugged in answer. I could, but Jiraiya apparently isn't traveling alone. Unless that one has the correct seal placed on him, they must arrive here through normal travel. Gamabunta slapped his face in frustration. How could Jiraiya miss something like that? Guh, that idiot! He better get his ass here quick, or else. Gamabunta noticed the six-tailed slug coming forward and smirked. Slugs were the prey of toads, and it would make for easy picking, tailed beast or no. Gamakin, help me out with this one. The red toad nodded and both leaped forward to attack the six tails. It began to form a slime bubble to protect itself. I may be ungraceful. Gamakin began to speak in his usual low self-esteem talk, however, he slammed his weapon into the bubble, destroying it with one swoop. But I will do whatever I must to protect those I wish to. Gamabunta sliced his sword into the slimy mucus and damaged one of the defending tails, forcing the slug back. Ha ha! Take that, you overgrown escargot! A deadly sheen began to cover the battlefield and Gamabunta quickly jumped backwards. The five tails made its presence known as its mouth slowly released more of the acidic steam. Damn! There's too many! Fukasaku frowned as the battle began to get closer to the gate to Konoha. He could only hope Jiraiya would place the seal on the other person quickly. Hurry, Jiraiya-chan! Uzugakure. Uzukage Tower. As soon as Mei arrived at the tower with Ao, she immediately set to work preparing letters for their allies to read. Ao watched in silent amazement as she sat at the desk and did the work with practiced ease, a trait obviously gained from being Mizukage. There was no angry frown nor silent cursing. Mei had no qualms with the work she did and did it efficiently, contrary to many lazier shinobi in the past. That takes care of those, Ao. Prepare a squad to head out to sea and launch a few carrier pigeons with the messages. I also don't want the ANBU sequestered within the compound any longer. I'm sure the Uzumaki are tired of it. Leave a single medical squad on standby along with a single ANBU unit around the compound. Ao saluted and left, leaving to accomplish his objectives given to him by his leader. Mei sighed and sat back in Naruto's chair, trying to get some of his essence from it with little success. She knew she would feel alone without him around, but she had no idea it would be this bad. The feeling of doubt was still there in her heart, just not as prevalent. His death was still her biggest fear. With little else she could do, though, Mei kept him in her thoughts as she sat in his chair in his office. Naruto, I wonder what you're doing right now. Are you doing well? Have you gotten any stronger? Kirigakure. Village gates. Without warning, Fukasaku jumped down from Gamabunta's head and went through hand science. As soon as he reached the ground, his hand hit pavement, and a puff of smoke appeared. The lead shinobi nearby crowded around to see what the reinforcements would be, but were shocked to see Jiraiya with a very familiar face. Shodai-sama? Asked one jonin, not sure if he could believe what he could see. The man in question turned to his fellow Leaf compatriots and smiled. Yes, I am Hashirama Senju. I don't have much time left to help you all on this mortal plane, so please give me your strength one last time so that I may protect you all. Hashirama took off running towards the Hokage building with Jiraiya in hot pursuit. Not sure if what they saw was correct or not, but too distracted to argue, the Leaf shinobi turned their attention back to the fight. With a new determination swelling in their hearts, they began to force the beasts back with their willpower alone, and Madara frowned on the slow progress. He would have to head to the front to stem the tide of the puny Leaf shinobi and their fearless leaders. Come on! Master Jiraiya is with us! Push them back! The Shodai has returned to save us again! We can defeat them! Rallying cries spread across the defensive line as scores of Leaf shinobi received the news from the front gate. Reinforcements had arrived. The battle's tide had turned. Konoha Hokage's office. The two quickly arrived at the large home at the center of the village. Hashirama had silently marveled at how the village had evolved since his time had passed over 30 years ago. The village was much larger and many buildings were upgraded with more technological advancements that his generation did not have. What a wonderful place. Sarutobi and his future chosen must have truly placed the village as the highest priority. It has truly become a beauty. I cannot let Madara destroy what the children of this land have worked so hard to create. Let's go! He shined inside of the building to the office and quickly sifted through drawers to find his necklace. In his process of looking, he came across Tsunade's sake bottle and glasses. Curious, he looked to the embarrassed Jiraiya for an explanation. The man scratched the back of his head and tried to play it off easy. Well, you see, Tsunadeheim has a lot of stress? Drinking is her way of helping her cope with all the paperwork. Yeah, that sounds good. Hashirama's eyes widened upon hearing that his granddaughter had been named the latest Hokage, even more so shocked that she drank. My granddaughter, the Hokage? And she drinks nonetheless. I'll have a stern talk with her if I see her again. He mumbled out as he searched again, finally coming across his necklace with a relieved smile. Here it is! He quickly placed it on and nodded towards Jiraiya, indicating he was ready. The white-haired man nodded and opened the window to leave. We should head back to the village gate. It's the closest to the beasts and has a good vantage point. Jiraiya nodded to the Hokage as they made their way back towards where the battle was getting steadily closer to home. Yes, that sounds fine. It will be extremely difficult for me to stop the beasts' rampage, let alone contain them. I will need everyone's help in keeping the enemy shinobi away. If Madara comes for me directly, please stay back. I will deal with him. Jiraiya could only nod as the brave leader of Konoha leaped up into the air and landed on the top of the gate. He began to go through hand signs as the Leaf Village shinobi stopped to stare at him in awe. Hokage-style 60-year-old technique Kakuan entering society with bliss-bringing hands. He focused his chakra into the ground surrounding each tailed beast, and slowly the ground began to shake as the wooden stakes began to rise. It can't be. This is impossible. Madara watched helplessly as large stakes began to appear around the tailed beasts, effectively halting them in confusion. He had seen the jutsu used once before, many years ago at the Valley of the End. Only one person knew how to perform the technique on such a large scale, but he was dead. Madara narrowed his eyes and felt it was time to make an appearance. Let's see who you really are. As Hashirama's newly made stakes contained the beasts in one spot, his necklace began to light up as he began to use his special ability to control them. Green beams of light began to emanate from his necklace and 4 strands of these launched at light speed to a stake that surrounded one of the tailed beasts. This strand soon interconnected all of the stakes, and when all were united by the green light, it shot towards the beast in the center and hit them in the center chest. This powerful chakra began to overtake their own senses and slowly forced their powers to recede. They fought, of course, trying their best to resist the controlling chakra aura. Without proximity to crush the user of the crystal and would release, they had little chance of escaping. As their powers waned, they began to shrink in conjunction. Hashirama allowed a small smirk to find its way on his face as he saw victory at hand. With his concentration, though, he could not bring a hand to wipe the sweat that had formed on his brow. The body containing him was extremely durable and had high levels of tolerance, telling him whoever had sacrificed themselves was a powerful shinobi. Sensing an enemy coming towards him to his left, Hashirama turned his head and with one hand caught the oncoming kick that would have hit his head. He glared at the masked man, already knowing exactly who it was with the glowing red Sharingan. Madara Uchiha, so you really are still alive. Madara reeled his foot back and jumped backwards, facing off against the distracted Hokage. I could say the same about you, Hashirama Senju. The way he spat out the Hokage's name made the man cringe and feel reminded just how much the Uchiha particularly hated him. What have you done, Madara? Have you gone insane? This was to be your home as much as mine. We only wished for your cooperation. The masked man chuckled at the outrageous response he had expected from Hashirama, a typical response of a senju. We were destined since the Rakuta Sannin himself to hate one another, an alliance would have never lasted. I was proven right when my clan was ordered to be killed by the third Hokage. You Senju can't be trusted, that is why I will destroy this obstacle of mine for world domination. Hashirama's eyes widened, and that was when he finally acknowledged that his old friend had truly gone insane. You are insane. It looks like I will have to finish what I started many years ago. I'm going to do what I should have done, kill you! A wooden spike suddenly erupted from the ground and almost impaled Madara, only to pass harmlessly through him. Haha, you will have to do better than that if you want to kill me. Besides, you can't move from that spot because you are holding the tail beasts down. If you move, you will lose your concentration and your hold on them. Hashirama glared at him, even though he knew the man was right. He couldn't move as long as he had to keep the beasts down. Sensing danger, Madara stepped back to allow a few kunai and shuriken to pass by him, and saw that the distraction had allowed Jiraiya along with Fukasaku and Shima to arrive. They had taken up a defensive stance in front of the Hokage, and Jiraiya had already begun his transformation into Sage mode. You won't touch the Hokage as long as Jiraiya of the Sannin is here. Madara laughed as the man made a silly pose and made up an exaggerated fighting style as he prepared to fight. I'd like to see if you really are anything other than talk. Jiraiya cringed and launched himself at Madara, intent at buying Hashirama time. Land of Bears. Hashigakure. Sumeru, a message from Uzugakure has arrived. Hokuto had just arrived from her patrol around the deadly ravine and had caught a pigeon before it could get caught in the lethal gas. Sumeru, now sporting the Hashikage's purple robe and hat, took the scroll from the bird to read and was surprised to find it from Naruto's wife, Mei. It was an alert to gather his forces and head to Uzugakure immediately for a war council and preparation for an invasion of Kiri? This must be important. Yeah, this has to be the real deal. We can finally put an end to Akatsuki and show the elemental nations that we can handle things ourselves. Hokuto, gather all able-bodied shinobi we have. I have a very important announcement. Hokuto stood up from her seated position and made to leave, only to turn back towards Sumeru in confusion. What did Naruto have to say? Sumeru smirked, and Hokuto already knew it was trouble if he was smirking about it. Looks like we are finally taking action against Akatsuki. We might just end the war on our own. Land of Waterfalls. Takigakure. A message from Naruto, huh? Alright then, I'll gather what troops we can spare and prepare to head for Yuza Island. We can take the fight to Akatsuki and hopefully make up for our past wrongs to Jinchuuriki. Shibuki's advisors nodded and moved aside so the young leader could take charge of his forces. Takigakure was on a war march, but they weren't the only ones rallied to Yuza's cause. Crescent Island. Michiru's palace. Naruto's ready to fight, huh? Well, I'm no warrior, but I trust Naruto to know when the time's right. Send a message to Getsugakure and rally our shinobi to aid him. He helped me see what true happiness was through his stubborn determination. This is the least I can do to repay him. King Michiru announced to his squires upon reading Naruto's scroll, alerting him of the latest news on the war front. Yes, Michiru-sama, we shall make the arrangements. The large man nodded and held his cheek with one hand, leaning onto one side of his throne. I hope Hikaru doesn't catch wind of this. After the effect Naruto had on him, he might very well end up joining the expedition. Ah well, maybe we can win this silly war after all and I can take a second tour of the world again. I wouldn't mind seeing Naruto's home. The king shrugged. He had all the time in the world. For now, though, the fate of the world still had yet to be decided. He would just have to wait until the final blow had been struck. Chapter 32. Arc, Yuzu-no-Kuni, 6th Elemental Nation. Land of Fire. Konohagakure outskirts. Tsunade and Sakura were running through the forest to attempt to reach Konoha before the attack began. It was painfully obvious to them, though, that quite a swath of destruction had already been made as they passed by a few wrecked areas of ground now no more than craters. Both were extremely concerned for their home, and Tsunade felt helpless as she was the Hokage, the supreme leader of the village and its greatest protector, and yet she wasn't there to fulfill her duty. Damn it, we have to hurry! She repeated in her mind again, hoping the mantra would make her and Sakura arrive to the battle quicker. Wait, Tsunade-sama, look! Sakura pointed out something off the path they were headed and Tsunade risked a glance. What she saw intrigued her enough to investigate further, so she led Sakura off into a grass clearing. Inspecting the seals surrounding the 4 pots they found, it seemed as though it was the area where Madara had released the tailed beasts. Walking up to one of the containers, Tsunade observed the kanji and frowned, confirming that the monsters had already been released. Feeling a fit of rage come over her, Tsunade reared back her arm and shattered the fragile clay pot. "No, Tsunade-sama!" Sakura tried to stop Tsunade, but it was to no avail. Luckily for the girl, Tsunade's assumption was correct, and no repercussion was made. "They aren't here, Sakura. Madara must have already released them, as I feared. We need to get moving, we already wasted too much time." Sakura nodded and allowed Tsunade to begin making her way through the forest again, settling into moving right behind her master. "I hope we can make it in time to Konoha. Oh, where is Naruto when we need him?" Kirigakure. Village Gate. "You won't touch the Hokage as long as Jiraiya of the Sannin is here," Jiraiya announced to the offending Madara Uchiha, taking up the spot of protecting the Hokage. "What are you doing?" The Hokage grunted out. He had promised to defeat Madara. Jiraiya was only going to get himself killed fighting the venerable Uchiha. "Hokage-sama, you have to handle those tailed beasts. I'll hold him off for that long at least." Madara chuckled and launched himself forward, hoping to surprise the Sannin. "Jiraiya-chan!" Fukasaku warned, and Jiraiya gathered his natural energy into a protective flame around him, preparing for a counter. "Gotcha!" Madara was about to punch Jiraiya in his face when he felt a bone-shattering hit land against his jaw and sent him spinning backwards. Holding his jaw from the pain, he looked at Jiraiya with his Sharingan, but couldn't detect anything strange about his body. When he was around the man, though, a strange sense came around him as if there was another presence, or strength nearby, and he could only guess it was dangerous to get close to the Sannin. Jiraiya smirked as the man got hit with his frog kata, extending the reach of his power. It was then that Madara noticed that Jiraiya's arm was extended as if he had punched him. "That's impossible. My Sharingan read his movements. There was no way he would reach me in time to hit. There must be some trick to this new mode he is using. I'll have to be careful. It's been a while since someone has been able to land a hit on me." Madara grabbed his jaw and sickeningly snapped it back into place, also cracking his neck at the same time. "Ah, that was the perfect wake-up call, thank you, Jiraiya." Scowling at his mockery, Jiraiya prepared another attack directed at the man. Instead of taijutsu, the white-haired hermit would test the man's abilities with a ninjutsu attack. Going through hand signs, Jiraiya prepared a powerful fire attack with Madara's curious eyes. "Fire release, big flame bullet! Fire release, big flame bullet!" Jiraiya's eyes widened in surprise to find that the man copied his jutsu and sent it back with full force, quenching either attack. "Fight fire with fire?" Madara thought triumphantly as he decided playtime was over for Hashirama. He could sense the tailed beasts weakening and his control slipping away. "But this is no time for games. I'm too close to lose now." Jiraiya watched as Madara's Sharingan changed shape and the man began to disappear into some invisible portal. Fukasaku knew the treachery of the Sharingan and tried to warn the sage to attack. "Jiraiya boy, don't let him finish teleporting." Looking at the elder in surprise, Jiraiya leaped forward with his enhanced speed and tried to land an attack only for Madara's body to disappear right before he could hit. Sailing past the man's previous location, Jiraiya's open palm attack slammed into the wooden wall and sent splinters shattering down either side. Attempting to find the man with his senjutsu chakra, Jiraiya could find little trace that Madara had even been there. Suddenly, he turned around to see Madara reappearing right next to the Hokage and knew he had to think fast. "Sage Art, Hair Needle Barrage!" Using his fastest attack, Jiraiya attempted to cut off Madara's chance to hit the Hokage, sending razor-sharp hair splinters at the man. Sensing the danger, Madara quickly went through with his previous plan and used his Sharingan to teleport himself and Hashirama to a more secluded spot. The Hokage, remembering a similar experience during his previous battle with Madara, allowed the pull to happen so as to keep the danger from Konoha. The tailed beasts have been subdued. Madara was too late. Their power cannot help him any longer. Now it is only he who is a danger to Konoha. Jiraiya quickly leaped to the Hokage's side only to find the man, along with the villain behind the attack, gone. Huffing angrily in frustration, Jiraiya slammed his fist into the ground and again made a large crater into the village gate. Feeling multiple signatures approaching his position, he regained his composure to welcome a fully decked-out group of jonin arrive, led by the one and only Kakashi Hatake. Kakashi, last time I heard about you, you were slated for death. The older man joked only to have Kakashi smile back. Last time I heard about you, Jiraiya-sama, you were dead. The Sannin nervously scratched the back of his head and tried to recover. Well, you see it kinda happened like dash. Before he could continue, Jiraiya was interrupted by Inoichi Yamanaka, one of the accompanying jonin. Sorry to interrupt, Jiraiya-sama, but where did the first go? We saw him arrive with you at the gate, but haven't seen him since then. Jiraiya frowned and looked down, leading everyone but Kakashi to do the same. Wait, what do you mean the first? Shikaku Nara decided to answer his confused friend, taking pity on him as he was still in jail during the time the first arrived. You see, under unknown circumstances, Jiraiya-sama brought a resurrected first Hokage with him to help us. You must have still been in the dungeons during that time, but without him, we would never have been able to subdue the beasts. Kakashi could only look at the man in shock, making the Nara turn back to Jiraiya for a proper response. Really though, Jiraiya, where did he go? The white-haired man sighed and scratched his head as he began to lose his toad-like features. I was protecting him well enough from that masked man, Madara, when the man got past me using some sort of time-space jutsu. He took Hashirama-sama somewhere far away from here, I suppose to fight him one-on-one. I am strong with senjutsu, but I'm not a miracle worker. Even I can't be instantaneous like that guy can be with his Mangekyo Sharingan. The other jonin nodded. It was a bittersweet victory with the loss of their first Hokage not only once but twice now. I see, but can't you find him with your sage chakra? Suggested Choza Akimichi, so far remaining quiet in the presence of the others. Jiraiya's sweat dropped at not thinking of doing it before. I'll handle it, Fukasaku announced, placing his webbed hands together and attempting to gather and focus his natural energy to encompass the area. The other waited quietly, hoping that they could rescue the Hokage in time. It took a few moments longer before the toad could lock onto Madara's unique signature of chakra. Opening his eyes from his focused state, Fukasaku prepared to announce to the impatiently waiting shinobi. I've found him! Follow Jiraiya, everyone! Jiraiya boy, that way! Fukasaku pointed towards the northeast, an area of deep forest that would no doubt offer much seclusion for fighters. With little choice, Jiraiya began to follow Fukasaku's directions with the others in tow. The remaining shinobi in Konoha set about restoring order and securing Konoha to make sure Madara left no surprises. Konohagakure. Forest outskirts. The forest that was once at peace had been shattered, broken trees, dead animals, and craters littered the once pristine area. Konoha's nature had been damaged, but it was not yet broken. Within one such clearing not too far from the hidden village, a portal began to open up. Its contents had recently arrived from a trip to another dimension, and both were ready to fight one another to the death. Hashirama remembered the strange sense of vertigo when Madara had used the same trick against him at the Valley of the End. From what he could tell, Madara could send a person to some other dimension and have them slowly die a lonely death. For some reason, though, it seemed the Uchiha would never grant this fate to the Senju. It seems I am one of the few he wishes to kill with his bare hands. I only hope I can last long enough to stop this man. Tumbling out of the portal, both combatants took a moment to steady themselves. Most often, Madara had no real problems with his time-space technique. This time he was rushed during the transition, and it was enough for him to falter as he escaped the dimensional portal. Hashirama recovered as quickly as he could and slammed his hands together into the snake hand sign, hoping to catch his rival off guard. Sensing danger, Madara catapulted back to see wood spikes erupt from the ground where he stood. He landed on his feet and slowly shook his head in disappointment, Hashirama was so predictable. TSK, I think we both know I can dodge something like that. Hashirama cracked his knuckles and pointed his arms straight at Madara. The Sharingan allowed the man to track the chakra going into the appendage. Wood release, great forest. A dozen sharp stakes formed around the now wooden arm and launched at Madara, forcing the man to either dodge or counter. Feeling an exhilaration he hadn't felt since he last fought Hashirama, the Uchiha felt daring. Charging forward, he waded through the spikes to reach the Hokage. Sensing the danger, the Senju created smaller spikes along each stake and extended them, making the spaces in between each stake a death trap. Madara felt small cuts begin to form on his skin and made himself transparent to avoid further damage. A momentary lapse in the Hokage's thinking allowed Madara to land a cheap shot to his chin, sending the Hokage flying back. Madara leaped forward to pursue but watched as Hashirama's momentum sent him into a tree. The strange thing was that there was no crater, and it looked as if the man had planned it. Biting his lip, Madara looked around for his now missing enemy. Damn, the valley had no trees for him to use that technique on, damn him. Hashirama allowed himself to slowly slip out of a tree and began to go through hand signs as his opponent's back was turned. Finishing with the snake seal, the ground began to shift around Madara and he realized he would be in trouble if he didn't do something quick. Earth release, rising stone spears. Earth release, encompassing mud wall. As the spikes launched inwards to skewer him, Madara formed a protective earth wall around himself, allowing the jutsu to cancel each other out. Using his transparency technique, Madara walked out of the protective barrier and back out into the battlefield, waiting for his opponent to show his face again. Come on now, Hashirama, don't tell me that all you have left is some tricks? Suddenly, a dozen Hashiramas ran out and charged towards Madara. Looking inside of them, he saw no chakra systems at all, allowing him to realize they were wood clones. Too easy. Allowing one to get up close, Madara ducked underneath the punch sent towards him and kicked the clone away, in the process shattering the ribcage made of wood. Seeing the others preparing to attack, Madara went through more hand signs and decided to use the man's own jutsu against them. Earth release, rising stone spears. Spikes came out of the ground and skewered the few remaining clones, leaving Madara alone on the battlefield again. Gotcha! Madara was taken by surprise when he was suddenly dragged underground by an unseen force. Hashirama jumped out of the earth, showering dirt and rocks on the battlefield as Madara took his time in escaping from the simple jutsu. As Madara reappeared, Hashirama sent more stakes of wood flying out of the ground to attack the Uchiha. Easily dodging them, Madara was surprised to find them following his movements, and decided he would have to change plans. As one snaked around to stab him from behind, he sent a devastating axe kick onto the wood and made the stake fall limp to the ground. He rounded to hit another that was poised to strike him in the chest, shattering it with little semblance left of its original form. Sensing a presence from behind, Madara turned to avoid a few kunai and found himself face to face with the real Hashirama. Sensing that playtime was over, the Senju Hokage knew that there was little time to waste, and he knew he had to defeat Madara quickly. Memories of their last battle came back to him, and while Madara did have the ultimate Mangekyo during that time, he had not developed those new powers so well. I do not remember him using that transparency jutsu very much during our last fight, so I cannot gauge it that way. However, I have noticed that it takes little outward effort to do, and he only does it when he is in danger. If he has to hit something, he must be solid, and that is where I will have to strike, to do damage. I must be prepared to take a hit as well. Hashirama cringed at the thought as he grappled with his old rival, either getting an advantage in taijutsu. You've lost, Senju. Once you're gone, I'll just recapture the beasts, you can't stop me. Madara gloated, loving to see the angry, vengeful look on the usually calm man. You've gone insane! I'm going to fix my mistake that I should have done years ago, and I would have had you not been a coward. Those words affected Madara by making his blood boil and sent Hashirama reeling back with a kick to his abdomen. How dare you call me a coward? It's the Senju who sought peace because you knew we would win if your clan didn't move to more desperate terms. Hashirama said nothing as he charged forward again and prepared to deliver a punch to his mortal enemy. Madara smirked and decided he would do the same, launching forward in an attempt to hit him first. As their fists passed one another, Madara realized something was off about Hashirama's fist's trajectory. Taking the punch to his face, Hashirama held Madara in place and allowed a wooden stake to drive through their stomachs, taking a strange pleasure in the look of anguished surprise in Madara's eye. Surprised, Madara? As both were impaled on the same stake, they were face to face and unable to move. While the move did not necessarily harm Hashirama as it was not his body, it still did leave him unable to move. Madara for one never thought his old rival would resort to such a trick to win, but then it was painfully obvious to him that there was no way the original Hashirama could have done it, as they both would have been harmed. You were summoned? It seemed so obvious now, but in his blind rage and seeing the Senju alive he forgot reason. Hashirama smirked. Took you long enough. Scowling underneath his mask, it soon changed to a strangled cry of pain as the stake began to shift. That's one secret you can't hide from me, Madara. I was able to observe your jutsu's apparent weakness to natural energy of any kind. My wood release was a perfect way to combat your transparency jutsu. It seemed we were destined to fight, huh? Madara said nothing to the man, only trying to escape was his priority. Sensing a presence behind him, Hashirama attempted to turn his head to see the new presence only to cringe at the sight. The death god hovered behind him, and he knew it was time for him to go. Well, Madara, my only regret was that I was unable to stop you with my own two hands. I guess I'll have to leave that to this generation of shinobi. The will of fire still burns brightly to the fate of the world. The Uchiha didn't understand what the man was getting at and continued to try and escape from the trap set upon him, getting desperate as the stake began to shake and falter. Hashirama noticed that new arrivals had come, but he was too weak to look. It felt as if the undying energy that had been with him was being sapped. Both he and the soul that had been housed in the body were being sapped away into the death god. With his last piece of energy, Hashirama placed his hand on the struggling Madara's shoulder and bid him one last smile, a thing that only a true believer in the will of fire could give. Damn you, Hashirama! Grandfather! Tsunade had arrived in the field just as her venerable old grandfather began to disintegrate into ash and dirt, leaving nothing but a pile of the material behind. Madara scowled at her presence, and, with the wood user finally gone, shucked off the weak and frail wooden stake that had impaled him. Holding his stomach in obvious pain, he turned to see that Jiraiya and more leaf shinobi had arrived, obviously tracking him through his chakra. Stop him! He's the one that attacked the leaf! Jiraiya ordered, and the Jonin leaped into action, charging forward to meet the heavy-breathing Madara. With the last of his strength, the Uchiha used his time-space jutsu to return to Kirigakure. He had been defeated and most likely would die if he did not do something about his wound. Damn you, Hashirama! You must torment me even after death. Tsunade slowly walked over to the pile of ash, seeing something glisten with the moonlight striking it. Brushing away what was left, Tsunade's eyes widened in shock to find her grandfather's necklace dangling from a dead Orochimaru's neck. Her old teammate looked at peace, no evil smirk or curled cackle, just a man that got to die happy. Orochimaru, you did you really, sacrifice yourself? Tsunade couldn't believe it, and she began to shake with silent sobs as she remembered the two men who had just died before her eyes. A sudden strong grip to her shoulder made her look up, and once again shock came to her. There was Jiraiya, her old friend who she had thought dead for up to a year since. At first, her eyes had only locked on Madara and her disappearing grandfather. She had tuned out the man's voice when he had given the order to attack and ignored her peripheral vision of his white hair as she stepped forward to observe the glistening necklace. Now, though, there were no obstructions, it was just her and Jiraiya. Without any words spoken, the old man smiled and lowered himself to his knees, bringing her face against his shoulder. There, Tsunadeheim. He spoke softly, so softly it almost didn't sound like Jiraiya to her. It had to be, though, no other man would have gotten so close. Everything's all right now. And for the first time for many, The Jonin and Sakura watched as Tsunade cried happy tears and held on to her fellow Sannin for all he was worth. It was a touching reunion and a welcome change to the horrid death and destruction that had happened only a moment before. Is this what Hashirama had planned for all along? Konohagakure. Village Gate. 3 days later. Tsunade, along with her immediate subordinates of Kakashi, Jiraiya, and Shikaku stood at the gate to welcome the 4 oncoming armies of the Alliance. She stood with her Hokage hat on to have some semblance of her authority as Hokage. Jiraiya stood proud next to her and Shikaku and Kakashi flanked them with their hands in their pockets. It was soon realized that, without Jiraiya's intuition in going to Orochimaru for help, that the Leaf Village would have been destroyed. It is impossible to rouse an army and arrive at a foreign place on a moment's notice. Things like that take time. Time, it seemed, that Konoha could not have afforded. Now they were waiting for the imminent arrival of the armies so that they could plan the counterattack. Do you think they will believe what happened? Questioned Kakashi. It was a bit unbelievable to think the criminal Orochimaru would sacrifice himself to summon Hashirama Senju from the grave and save Konoha from 4-tailed beasts and Madara himself. Tsunade looked at the Jonin and shrugged. Most likely not, however, we don't need to tell them every detail. We will keep things short, and hope that the Reikage can make some sense on what to do next. She turned back to staring down the road. A small dust cloud could be seen in the distance. Jiraiya looked at his teammate, glad to see she had recovered since 3 days ago. While he had been quite afraid of her reaction to him coming back to life so suddenly, she had been quite hospitable to him. In fact, he noticed she smiled a lot more around him than she used to. It must be my manly charms have finally gotten to her. I knew they would eventually. His perverted smirk got the better of his face, and Tsunade glared in his direction. You got a problem, Jiraiya? She showed her fist as proof and he quickly held up his hands in defense. Although his eyes did wander to her chest, now adorned with the first Hokage's necklace. His smile left him for a more serious demeanor, as he remembered what the woman had said when she took it from Orochimaru. I'm going to return it to who it rightfully belongs to, and hope that he can forgive me for my harsh words. He's more fit to hold the Kage title than I am. Naruto, I wonder what you will say when she finds you again. I know you deserve an apology from me at least. Ma'am, they are here. Shikaku noted and Tsunade turned to see the 4 other leaders standing in front of her with their forces intermingling with each other behind them. Tsunade, I see your village wasn't destroyed. Noted, and she couldn't tell if the man was happy or sad about the fact. Yes, that's right. It seems that thanks to my teammates' return and an outside source of help, we were able to rout Madara's attack. I believe it's time we take the fight to him, though. My village just barely averted this close call. Anoki grunted and Tsunade inclined her head to view him at his short height. Now wait a minute, Tsunadeheim, where exactly are the tailed beasts? I think it's only fair we recover those we have lost as our own. Tsunade gritted her teeth as the selfish old man reared his head again. They are gone. I sent Shinobi to investigate their whereabouts, but it seems the beasts have disappeared. Anoki's eyes widened in surprise. Disappeared? How does something that large just disappear? Tsunade shrugged and turned back to A, awaiting his judgment. You are right, Tsunade. I think it's time we take the fight to Madara to keep something like this from happening again. We shall allow our armies to rest for now and give you time to gather your forces. Once you are prepared, we march for the coast and then sail to Kirigakure to finish this war. A cheer elicited from the men behind the Kage, and Tsunade began to give orders for them to disperse and find housing. The alliance of the great elemental nations was finally showing its fangs, but the Yuzu sphere was already 2 steps ahead of them. Uzugakure. Uzukage Tower. 2 weeks later. Ma'am, it's time. Mei sat in her husband's chair, waiting for the final reports to come in of Yuzu's battle readiness. Looking at Ao, she sighed and realized the fated day had finally come. The day they take the fight to Kiri with the allies Naruto had garnered. While Snow was unable to send military support, new chakra armor had come in and been issued to all active ANBU squads as well as high-ranking officers. Ao's usual red cloak was now filled out with the armor that it held beneath, a custom color made for Yuzu. All the armor plates were red. Mei also had one, although she did not like its design and chose not to wear it. She also had a unique one made for Naruto, although she was unable to send it to him. I see, shall we go then? Ao nodded, and she got up from her seat and walked out of the office with him following close behind. As they walked, the hurricanes fell into step behind them, completing the now group of 8. Mei soon arrived at the lobby and exited the building to find Uzugakure's gathered forces awaiting her command. Squads of Jonin, Chunin, ANBU, and medical teams were standing at attention in columns waiting for her command. This was the frightening power of an entire shinobi village geared for war, and it was the first time Yuzu was the one taking the fight to the enemy. Platoon, march! She ordered, and the columns began to march towards the village gate along with Mei's entourage in the front. Families lined the streets, watching the men and women guardians of their village pass them by. Banners and other heraldry hung high along the shinobi marchers, the ninja proudly marching to the drills of drummers and musicians. The Uzumaki swirl adorned something everywhere a person would look, the village showing their pride for their ancestry and for their armed forces. The army left the gates of their beloved village behind. It was time now for war. It wouldn't be long before they reached the shores and, together with their gathered allies, set sail with their ships to Kirigakure, the final stop of the war. Kirigakure. Mizukage's office. Madara sat upon his throne, holding his stomach from the throbbing pain. It had been a little over 2 weeks since his reunion with Hashirama, and it only made him realize just how weak he was compared to that man. His wounds from the battle over decades ago had not yet recovered, and the most recently inflicted one was still hampering the Uchiha. To make matters worse, what was left of his intelligence forces alerted him to the impending invasion of not only Yuzu and her allies, but the elemental nations and their alliance. There was little left for Madara to do, and there was nowhere left to run. He would not die easily, though. He would take Kirigakure's forces and as many Uzumaki down with him as he could. Mizukage-sama! A man burst through the doors to the office and quickly bowed in apologies. Sir, enemy forces have been sighted at the rock barriers you ordered created. The Yuzu sphere forces have arrived. Madara scowled. They came quicker than he expected. Making to stand up, a hand suddenly went to his stomach and he growled in pain. Sir, you shouldn't strain yourself. The front isn't a place you should dash. The shinobi was cut off when his throat was being gripped tightly by Madara. I dare you to finish that sentence, you little worm! He threw the messenger across the room and began to hobble out of the building, intent on being near the front to view the battle. I will not let Hashirama win so easily. I am not finished yet. Kiri's coast. Staging point. Start of defensive barriers. Ma'am, it appears our ships cannot go any further with these rocks in our way. Ao noted as he and the Mizukage observed the long line of sharp rocks that lined the coast of Kiri's main isle. So it seems, we can't go around either, as this is the only area with a sizable dock to fit all our ships. It seems this is where we get off. Mei suddenly jumped off the boat and began to walk on the water, and many shinobi began to follow suit until the entire force was marching across the sea. We aren't too far from land. It should only be a few minutes to reach the docks. Chojuro warned the group as they proceeded across the water. Suddenly sensing danger, Mei held up a hand to stop and watched as the water in front of the army began to form a large vortex. From the middle of the vortex came a gigantic water dragon, and it bellowed out a challenge to the shinobi gathered. A few Hyo clansmen came up, their affiliation obvious with their dark hair and icy blue eyes, and placed their hands on the water. It wasn't long before the entire water dragon was frozen solid and nothing but a mere decorative piece in the middle of the sea. From either flank of it came Kirigakure shinobi, and it was soon a battle royal between both forces. Mei fell back to get a better vantage point rather than get bogged down in the fight, jumping up onto one of the large rock barriers. It wasn't long before it became apparent to her that new presences had arrived, and it seemed as though the Elemental Alliance forces had come to their aid. Kumo's white flak vest intermingled with Yuzu's red and earth and fire techniques sprung out to meet Kiri's water jutsu. Turning to her left, Mei saw Tsunade standing next to her with a big smile on her face. Mei Terumi, Fifth Mizukage. Mei cringed and turned her attention back to the battle, looking for someone in particular. My name is Mei Uzumaki, thank you, and I am not the Mizukage. You should begin to participate in the fighting now, Hokage, before we do all the work for you. Akaru! Tsunade watched as a man appeared near Mei, obviously a special forces type of some sort with a large scroll on his belt. Yes, Mei-sama. He nodded his head in respect and waited for her orders. Just as Naruto's orders had requested of him, he now held on to the scroll that would summon their fearless leader into battle. I want you to get ready to summon Naruto. I fear it won't be long before Madara decides to come against us. The man saluted and disappeared to prepare for the summoning while Tsunade eyed the woman curiously. I was wondering where Naruto was. What has he been doing? Mei looked at her and gave her a simple answer, hoping she would allow her some space. Training to fight Madara. Before Tsunade could make to answer, it seemed the fight further intensified with a new surge of Kiri's reinforcements joining the large battle on the sea. Mei spied an orange mask and knew Madara had come in person this time. Finding Akaru, she gave him the signal to summon Naruto. The man nodded and, together with his squad of beast tamers, opened the large scroll and began to gather the sufficient chakra needed to bring Naruto and his forces to their location. Madara, using his Sharingan eye, was able to see past the battle and lock onto the imminent danger of what Akaru could bring upon him. Charging forward through the mass of fighters, he knocked away any warrior who would stand in his way, disappearing and reappearing from one side of the battle area to the other unscathed. Mei realized Akaru would be in danger, and quickly moved to intercept with Tsunade close behind her. Madara saw the previous Mizukage come at him and ignored her, knowing it was only a distraction. Akaru held his ground and prepared to summon Naruto even if it would cost him his life to do so. Just as Madara arrived to take a stab at the ANBU captain, a large puff of smoke appeared and covered easily half of the battlefield. Madara felt an overwhelming feeling of heat come from in front of him where the summoning circle was and leaped backwards from danger. Mei had stopped her charge just short of the scroll and now waited impatiently for the smoke to clear. She wanted to see her husband again after so long. When it finally did clear, she was frightened at what her husband had transformed into. What the hell? Madara said aloud, trying to figure out just what he was looking at. Behold, Naruto-sama's training has been completed! The first human to ever harness the avatar form. Yamera announced. He was one of 6 large lava monkeys that had come along with Naruto to fight alongside him and his people. Avatar form? Mei sounded it out but could not come to grips with the sight of him. The power and heat that surrounded him were overwhelming, it almost brought her to her knees. Madara Uchiha, I have come to destroy you! Chapter 33. The Final Battle, Avatar vs. Sharingan. Arc, Yuzuno Kuni, 6th Elemental Nation. Coast of Kiri. Battlefield. Naruto? Mei called out questioningly, not sure if it was really her husband standing before everyone. The figure picked up on her voice and turned to face her, fully revealing his new form to her. Naruto's tan skin, Yuzu clothing, nor his blonde locks were showing on him, making it even more difficult to tell who he was. His blue eyes were now only white orbs, and they were the only features showing on his face. The rest of his body was completely encased in shifting, cracking, and heated lava. It was not like a jutsu though. Mei could tell it was completely natural lava straight from a volcano. From his body, bits and pieces of rock and lava would drip down onto the water surface and create hot steam, further proving its lethal properties. It made it seem as if Naruto's entire body was alight with fire apart from a few spaces of solidified, rocky magma. Surprisingly, or perhaps unsurprisingly, the spiky form of his hair had been retained even with lava covering it, at least making his head seem somewhat recognizable. To explain simply, Mei and everyone else that had known Naruto before were speechless by his radical transformation. Madara wasn't pleased, nor did he make it seem as if he was impressed. His glare remained as Naruto continued to eye his wife, and an evil plan came to the man. Wouldn't it be so sad if the Jinchuuriki was to lose his wife before he died? Naruto started to reach out an arm towards Mei, to reassure her it was still him. Mei felt comforted by it, and began to take tentative steps closer to what she thought was her Naruto. Madara took that lapse in concentration to charge forward towards Naruto's wife, as the avatar's back was to him, and he hoped to avoid detection. Naruto's outward appearance did not reveal surprise, however. His body began to tense as he felt Madara's body heat come closer to his own. Mei had gotten closer to Naruto when she was able to see Madara coming around his side and quickly prepared to defend herself. The man chuckled as he knew it was too late. His arm was already outstretched to strangle Mei's throat, and she didn't have the time to dodge. With speed that even left Madara speechless, Naruto caught the man's outstretched arm just as he passed by. It only took a moment for the Uchiha's brain to register the extreme pain that came from Naruto's touch and reeled away from the group, nursing his burning arm. Damn it, it was like a blur. How could I not detect his movement? Mei turned her attention from the retreating Madara back to Naruto, amazed at his sheer speed. This, really is Naruto. A smile came to her lips as the protective action done by the Avatar confirmed it. Her husband had completed the training and came there to finish the fight, just as he promised her. Mei, I won't be long now. I'll finish this so we can both go home, and raise Rashi as a family. Wait for me. His voice came out distorted and raspy, as if his throat had been burned, but Mei heard every word clearly. A tear came to her eye and she relinquished, nodding in affirmation to Naruto. Tsunade and the others, including Ao and Chojuro, were touched by the scene even amidst the chaos. Without further warning, Naruto disappeared into a blur, and the next thing everyone saw was the rock Madara was standing on, shattered to pieces just as the masked man barely jumped away in time. So fast. Ao could barely track the boy with his Byakugan activated. His enhanced speed was astounding. Wow, he has to have the same strength as I do with my chakra fist. Tsunade noted. Her super strength seemed to have found a rival with Naruto's taijutsu strength. As Naruto lured away Madara with lightning speed taijutsu, Yamera and the other lava monkeys ran over the water to brief Mei and the others. To see the personal summons accompanying her husband was reassuring, and even then Mei felt good to have their support. Their duty was to keep Naruto fighting, no matter what. Mei-sama! You must get the battle away from here. Naruto-sama's new powers are difficult to rein in and your forces will be caught in the crossfire. He also suggested you evacuate Kiri's population, in case the battle moves inland. Mei was surprised by the information supplied to her by the monkey, and she cast a lingering stare on Naruto's disappearing form over the ocean. Is his new form really that destructive? I understand, this battle should be over soon anyway. We will join in and see to it that Kiri's forces are routed, then we will proceed to the village and forcefully evacuate the population if need be. And please, stay with my husband and keep him safe. Yamera nodded and, along with the other monkeys, began to run towards Naruto's retreating form. That was the plan all along, Mei-sama. Naruto knew you would say something like that. He yelled over his shoulder as he ran off, leaving Mei with some form of comfort. Turning around towards the others, her Kage face back on, Mei began to issue orders. Without any doubt left in her heart, it was Mei's turn to go through with her duties so that Naruto could come home with her. All right, Chojuro, take command here and finish off these Kiri soldiers. Capture as many as you can take and get the boats out to sea until we have need of them. AOU, the ANBU, and the medical teams will be with me as we head straight for the city to evacuate. Chojuro and Ao saluted, allowing the swordsman to head into the battle area and Ao to take his place next to Mei. What's the plan, ma'am? Even if we can evacuate the civilians in the village, what about the other inhabitants around the isle? Mei began to take off running towards the docks and Ao struggled to follow, sending out a special whistle to the surrounding area. Over 24 masked shinobi quickly took up positions behind Ao and Mei as they ran across the water, leading their entourage to be complete. Mei looked over her shoulder at Ao and smirked, making him confused. Come on, Ao, do you think the people are really that foolish? When Madara began with these defenses, the people were evacuated to the village under the impending invasion scenario clause. I wrote it, as my predecessor did not have any such plan should an invasion fall on Kiri. As for the capital, it should be safe from any blast radius. Ao was surprised by her answer but then smiled, knowing he had to trust Mei's leadership abilities to the highest degree. Yes, ma'am, sounds like a plan. Kiri C. Naruto's battleground. Damn it, back you little bastard! Madara avoided another punch from Naruto and felt himself growing farther from the conflict zone. He's doing it on purpose. He's trying to make me get away from the battlefield. Madara catapulted back and prepared for a counterattack when he felt something hot sting his backside. He looked to find his Akatsuki robe had caught fire, and he was forced to drop it to the ground as it disintegrated. Glaring at the thing in front of him, Madara bent his knees and positioned his arms over one another. With a puff of smoke, Madara then had bracers on either wrist with strength-enhanced chains attached. Naruto eyed the man curiously, waiting for his next move. It wasn't long before Madara charged at him full force with the chains in an attempt to subdue him. Naruto allowed the chains to wrap around his body and felt the Uchiha close to his ear behind his back. The man was holding his wrists to his chest in an X shape, attempting to grapple Naruto's body into a tight hold. You may have delayed my plans for a time, Jinchuuriki, but you haven't changed them. I will still have my world domination, only this time your family won't live to see the end of it. That was enough for Naruto, and Madara watched helplessly as his tough chains were melted through instantly. With a sudden twist of his body, Naruto almost landed a blow on the man's revealed body, but he was able to become transparent before then. Sensing new presences, Madara turned to view 6 lava monkeys come into view and begin to go through hand signs. A summoning jutsu? He asked himself in confusion when he finished reading the hand signs, only to pale when he saw what they had summoned. Straight from the bowels of the earth itself, lava began to cover the battlefield and instantly heat up the water, creating a very thick steam. Madara attempted to see through the mist, but found himself just as blinded with his normal eye as he was his Sharingan. Naruto stepped onto the lethal magma effortlessly and, without hand signs, began to control it with just simple movements of his arms. Madara felt an incoming danger and twisted right, barely dodging a lava bullet. He could sense no chakra inside any of the attacks, meaning they were manipulated by something else, something more primal. Yamera smirked as Naruto made use of the lava and showed off one of the more major abilities of his avatar form. By mixing geothermic heat and his own chakra within his body effortlessly, Naruto gained the ability to manipulate natural lava without the use of his own energy. While this would not be advantageous anywhere but a volcano, with us, he could summon as much lava as he needed. It will be difficult for the Sharingan to detect incoming attacks if they are not using chakra. To his surprise, Madara looked beneath him and found the lava crawling up his body and quickly sought to escape the trap. It was too late though, his transparency couldn't go through the natural elements so easily, just like the wood element, and the man was entirely covered in the deadly substance. Naruto eyed the spot where Madara occupied warily. He didn't believe for a second that the man would die so easily. He made the lava recede after a few tense moments, knowing that anything beneath it would be dead by then. As he expected, it was not Madara beneath the lava, but a clone of Zetsu. Sensing 2 presences coming at him from either side, Naruto threw his arms out to either side of him and lava spikes impaled both enemies. The steam dissipated to reveal a shocked Zetsu and an even more surprised Kisame both hanging off of his lava attack. Both were bleeding from their mouths and one could see their bodies beginning to dissolve from the lethal attack that had pierced either. Why can't Samahata absorb you? Kisame rasped out, barely able to breathe as his lungs began to melt. Naruto turned towards him and relinquished his hold on Zetsu's spike, allowing the man's dying body to dissolve faster as it hit the lava bed. I am pure geothermic energy. It will take much more than that to reach my chakra and physical body. Your chakra-leeching sword can't touch me. Not even able to curse Naruto with his last breath, Kisame felt the lava close around him as Naruto held up an open fist towards him. Just as Gaara would use his sand as a coffin, Naruto repeated the process but with the Uzumaki blend, lava. Closing his fist, he concentrated the lava and destroyed the criminal's body in one swoop. Now that I have taken care of them, that only leaves their boss. Naruto brought his hands together and began to reach out to find Madara's unique body temperature signal. His white orbs widened in surprise when he found the man was nearing Kirigakure, no doubt trying to stop Mei. With a great burst of speed that surprised his monkey retainers, Naruto launched himself forward across the water, crossing the distance between the sea and shore in mere moments. From a bystander's view, it only looked as if the water was parting for some unseen force of nature. Kirigakure. Boats. Chojuro finished checking the last boat to make sure every shinobi save for Mei's forces were on board, dead or alive. They had finished securing the Kiri prisoners, having quite a lot of them after the army became demoralized with Madara gone. With little else to do, the swordsman got out of the ship's bowels and stood upon the deck, watching the shoreline for movement. Please Mei-san, Naruto-san, please win. Kirigakure. The evacuation was well underway. The ANBU teams were all well versed with Kiri's layout, as most if not all had lived there before their lives in Yuzu began. Mei was with 2 ANBU and AO, using his Byakugan to search homes they might have missed. Come on, we have to be sure we get everyone. AO thought to himself, pushing his mind even harder to focus on searching. Sighting a small child on the street, Mei leaped down from the rooftops and quickly bent down to pick the girl up. She wiped a bit of dirt that had fallen on the child's face. It made the girl smile with her small teeth just coming in through the gums. Well, hello little one, where are your parents? The girl shook her head, not knowing what happened to them in the chaos of the invasion. AO and the ANBU leaped down to assist her in getting the child out of the street. With AO's enhanced senses, he could see something approaching them from the north and attempted to warn Mei. Ma'am! Give the child to the ANBU, we've got trouble! Mei looked at the man confusedly but then saw someone running towards their group down at the end of the road. She quickly handed the child off to the ANBU and prepared herself. AO took up a position next to her, as the ANBU quickly fled with the child to safety under the Uzukage's wife's orders. Madara had lost his 2 most loyal henchmen with one fell swoop, and he was tired of buying time. He had to take action, and what better way to kill the boy's spirit than by killing his wife? It's over for you, girl, just like I should have done during the massacres. Mei rushed forward to meet the man's charge, contrary to AO's warning. The man cursed and tried to go after her, but even he couldn't keep up with the woman in speed. Damn it! What the hell is she thinking? It's over! Madara's forearm hit against Mei's as the 2 fighters impacted, vying over the other's strength. As the man slowly began to push her back, his other arm summoned a kunai and sent it straight for her gut. Mei saw his action and moved to dodge only to feel her wrists tied up with the man's chains, keeping her from moving so easily. She scowled as the knife came closer and prepared to take the hit. Naruto impacted Madara from his flank with such force that it sent the man through 2 buildings and 2 streets over. Without even stopping to say anything, Naruto continued to his pursuit of the man who had tried to not only harm him, but now his wife a second time. Mei just kept looking at the destruction Naruto's punch had made, unable to bring words to it. She was awoken when AO gripped her arm and shook her lightly, forcing her out of the daydream. Ma'am, we should go. The last of our forces are evacuating those gathered at the gate, and it wouldn't do well for us to disobey Naruto's wishes. Mei nodded reluctantly. She truly wished to stay and help Naruto, but even now, she could not bring herself to go against his judgment. Right, let's get moving! The 2 departed Kirigakure with Mei being the only one to look back, forcing AO to cringe in helplessness. She is really concerned about him. I should say something. Don't worry, Mei-sama. Naruto will be fine. He's a lot stronger than anyone I know, and he doesn't go back on his word. He promised to come back, so that means he will. Mei was surprised by AO's response but nodded nonetheless, allowing a smile to grace her features. Yes, you're right, AO. Naruto wouldn't want to see me cry over something like this. I just have to believe in him. We all need to believe in him. Kirigakure. Roof of Mizukage's office. Madara fell out of the portal again with little finesse. That was the second time an enemy had forced him into using his jutsu unprepared. Naruto's punch had not only broken the orange mask that now lay broken and discarded on the ground, but it had burned much of his face. To say Madara was angry was an understatement. He was livid. How dare that brat lay a hand on me? I still couldn't sense him thanks to his lava encasement. It's as if it is keeping any chakra from seeping out for my Sharingan to see. With little time to spare, Madara jumped away from the spot on the ground he had occupied when it was broken through from the inside of the building. Naruto burst out of the concrete roof and began to walk towards Madara. A no-nonsense feeling could be felt from him. Madara could tell the subtle change since he had tried to attack his wife the last time. Obviously he was a protective husband. Now listen, I know you're on dash. Madara was cut off when Naruto attempted to punch him in the gut only for Naruto to sail through him. As soon as he passed through, Naruto was able to touch Madara's back and the man quickly ripped off the shirt's cloth that was on fire. It's about time we finish this, old man. Madara flinched at the insult and held himself steady, ready to face off against Naruto, avatar form or no. I'll prove you wrong, Hashirama. There is no way this kid can kill me. To prove his point, Madara charged forward and dodged Naruto's defense, a low-aiming punch to Madara's gut. He was able to land a hit on the boy with a chakra-encased fist, sending the Uzukage sailing backwards. As he watched Naruto slide on the roof to recover from the hit, it was then that he was made to frown in disappointment when Naruto's face looked back at him. The cheek where he had hit was sizzling and red-hot with active lava. It then cooled to a dark brown as the armor reformed and Naruto shrugged off his hit. What does it take to kill this Kage? You are truly befitting of your rank of Kage, you know that? You are almost as much of a thorn in my side as Hashirama was in our day. You should take that as a compliment. I haven't said it to very many. Naruto made no move of recognition and instead brought up his arms for an attack, making Madara cringe as the fight began again in earnest. Two geysers of lava were sent launching from his palms, forcing Madara to evade by sidestepping. To his surprise, the large shots followed after him and forced him to run to the other side of the building. When he arrived at the edge, Madara turned and leaped forward, twisting his body so that he would fit between the two geysers as they launched past. What he hadn't counted on was Naruto being able to move during his attack, and he soon felt the sickening crunch of his ribcage shattering from the knee that had lodged itself in his chest. Madara saw the boy bring his hands together into a fist, and knew he was going to try and slam him into the ground, so he went transparent. Both fell to the ground, although one did so much more gracefully than the other. Madara landed in a heap, creating a small crater as his body fully impacted the ground. As his body had gone into shock when the knee had shattered his chest, the man was now free to scream in pain as the wounds Hashirama inflicted now reopened in earnest. Damn. If I had been in my prime, he wouldn't have landed the first punch. I can barely see. This is bad. Madara brought himself to look at Naruto, and was shocked to see the boy was no longer encased in lava. Now he was back in his old clothing and breathing heavily from exertion. It seemed the avatar form put a lot of stress on the boy's body, as he was on all fours trying to catch his breath. Blue orbs met red ones as the two combatants looked into each other's eyes as if reading their conditions. You are going to die very soon. Naruto forced his voice to speak, although it sounded as if he was still in avatar form. His entire body was working in overtime to recover from the use of the avatar. Madara chuckled, although the blood that escaped from his mouth seemed contrary to his upbeat attitude. With his one Sharingan eye revealed, the man put the last of his energy into preparing one last move. Come on, boy, don't you want to ask me some questions? I'm sure you are curious of something I did to try and ruin your life. If I'm going to die, then ask away. Naruto snorted despite himself. There was little he had to say to the man. I have nothing to ask, other than you dying quicker than you are now. Madara said nothing, only allowing more blood to leak from his mouth. Come on, don't you want to know how I pulled off manipulating Danzo and that old friend of yours, Sasuke? Naruto's eyes widened and he looked at Madara with renewed interest, eliciting a bloody smile from the man. Oh yes, that's right. We both know just how much Danzo loved that village. He would never betray it. He entered Akatsuki with one goal in mind: destroy it from within. I easily found out about his plan, and the first chance I got. Madara paused again in his speech, attempting to suck in some air. I cast a genjutsu on him, one that even his Sharingan couldn't see through. I manipulated him from his defection until his death, and he didn't even know. Naruto's fist tightened as he stared at the man, not believing his haughtiness. What about Sasuke? Madara smiled at the question and continued. Well, Sasuke was much easier. He was with me up until the point we transferred his brother's eyes into his. At that point, he tried to kill me. Said he was the only one that should rightfully hold the Uchiha name. It was then that I subdued him, and controlled him with my Sharingan. Either of them broke free of it until the last moments of their lives. Mother, Itachi, I'm sorry. Tsunade noticed something off about Danzo's normal eye and took a closer look as the room began to clear. That's strange. I thought for sure I saw a dash. Tsunade-sama, we have to go. Tsunade reluctantly left, allowing Danzo's body to fall over limp and the Sharingan to disappear from his eye. Madara had relinquished control. So, it's all been you, from the very start. Naruto said rhetorically. Every villain, every obstacle, everything was traced back to Madara. Yes, I have been your only enemy since the beginning, and it seems like I will be your last one as well. Naruto's eyes widened in surprise when Madara's Sharingan changed shape, taking on the form of his eternal Mangekyo. What are you doing? Naruto felt a great suction begin to pull him towards Madara's eye, and the man began to cackle unmercifully. If I can't kill you with this body, I will allow you to die in the void. You and the rest of the pitiful shinobi that came to this island will die. Your son will be left an orphan, and you will never see your wife again. To be alone and accursed, that is your destiny, Jinchuuriki. Naruto's eyes widened as he saw the buildings surrounding them begin to fall apart, and fall into the endless vortex of Madara's eye. He's insane. He'll kill himself just to take me with him. Feeling the suction grow stronger, Naruto punched a hole in the concrete and held on for dear life. Madara's laughing was covered up by the great sounds of wind whipping back and forth, and crumbling foundations of concrete shatter as the entire city began to fall under the influence of the vortex. Naruto reared a hand back and untied his headband, slowly placing it in the hole he had created. With little time left, he reached into his holster and took out a kunai, slamming it into the ground and holding the headband securely. Knowing the last thing he had to do, Naruto took a moment of peace to find calm inside of himself, remembering those that had come before him, and those that were with him now. I'm going to become the greatest Hokage. Naruto smiled at his memory of living in Konoha. The wish to become acknowledged was a craving. With his life in Yuzu, no matter how short, he had accomplished it. Never give up, that's your ninja way. His thoughts drifted to Jiraiya, his mentor for a time. If nothing else remained with him, those words would ring true with everything he had done. You've gotten stronger. Stronger than me, I think, and in more ways than one. Kakashi's words of praise rang into his ears, and he realized that many people thought that way about him, and he wondered if it was really true. The will of fire burns strong, in all of you. The third flashed into his mind, reminding him that the reason why he continued to fight, the reason he was able to convince Nagato, the reason he was still alive was because of his hope for peace and for the future of humanity. Make us proud, son. I know you can do it. Dad, I promised I would, and I don't go back on my word. Make sure to find yourself a nice little Uzumaki girl, alright, Naruto? I did, Mom. I only wish I could have introduced you to her. I love you, Naruto. I believe in you. Come back to me. The final words brought tears to his eyes as his thoughts drifted to Mei and little Rashi. It seemed there was one promise he wasn't strong enough to keep. Looking up, Naruto's eyes widened when he saw Mei standing there, unaffected by Madara or the crumbling city, and she was holding Rashi with a big smile. She didn't seem to notice him. She only kept smiling at the playful Rashi, who was giggling like a maniac as her fingers danced in front of his eyes. His eyes locked with hers for a moment, and it seemed as though her smile intensified before she began to fade away. A sad smile came to his lips and he tasted his salty tears. It seemed fate loved to play a cruel joke, no matter who it was on. Whether it's a mirage or not, Mei, please give me your strength, one last time. Relinquishing his hold on the handhold, Naruto felt the suction intensify and begin to pull him backwards. With a few hand signs, Naruto yelled out his final jutsu in desperation, hoping it would work. Lava release! Great magma dome! A city-wide dome began to stretch high up into the sky, to contain the jutsu that Madara had threatened to use on the fleet of ships at sea. With the last of his strength, Naruto fought to maintain the jutsu for as long as he could, absorbing multiple blows of oncoming debris and branches that impacted him. Feeling a sharp pain impale him, Naruto looked down to see his stomach impaled clean through. He glanced behind to see Madara stabbing into him with a metal pole. You bastard, why do you keep trying? Why don't you just die, you damn Uzumaki? Naruto spit out some blood and began to gather chakra into his hand, forming a perfect Rasengan in seconds. Because, Uzumaki, never give up! Naruto let the suction pull him towards Madara and sent his Rasengan right into the man's gut. As the final blow to the man, he sped his jutsu up with every ounce of energy he had. The black hole he had formed had almost taken the entire city, leaving a barren crater of dirt and concrete. Naruto and Madara were sucked in last, leaving the barren wasteland void of everything but a hero's final farewell. With the ground rooted up, Naruto's kunai was clearly impaled into the tough ground still. His headband lay still on the ground without a master to wear it. The war was over, but the hero was gone. I just want everyone to know that I thought about ending it here, but I can't yet. This would be too sad, so hopefully you'll forgive me as you read the final part of the chapter. It's not the epilogue. Kirigakure. 30 minutes later. Aftermath of Madara's final jutsu. Mei-sama, wait! Mei shrugged off Ao's hold on her sleeve and kept running through the broken and uprooted foliage to find her husband. Everyone had been on the boats when they saw the large storm get created over Kiri. The winds were strong enough to create large waves on the sea. When Mei saw the lava dome encase the city, it was then she knew something was very wrong, and immediately departed despite the warnings given by the others. She had to know what happened, she had to see for herself. There! Mei reached the outskirts of the lava dome and, keeping her speed high, slammed her fist into the dome, shattering a small piece of it. Naruto made this one strong. Madara's attack must have been bad. Mei used the small opening to enter and found herself looking at a large crater of where Kirigakure had been. There was little left, a few pieces of concrete, some roughed up dirt, and a few trees that were split up or broken in a dozen places. There was no body, no Naruto. Mei walked along the broken shell of the city, looking around for anything that could be helpful. A glint of silver made her head swivel and a smile reach her lips, Naruto's headband. She ran over to where it was glistening in the dirt. Ao frowned as his Byakugan told him the ugly truth of the matter. No one but them was there. Mei's smile quickly faltered when she saw the Yuzu's red cloth tethered not to a blonde head but a kunai. With nothing else left for her, Mei dropped to her knees in anguish and began to sob. Ao kept his distance, giving her the time that only her man should have been with her. He looked at the headband and he too lost it. Tears fell from his eyes as a scowl crept onto his lips. God damn it! His fist went slamming into a concrete block next to him, completely shattering it into smaller pieces. He rested his head against what was left of it, slowly beating his fist into the concrete with less and less vigor. Mei took another look at the headband and knew that her husband was gone, but he had left a memento behind for her. Taking caution to not dislodge kunai from the ground, she pulled the headband from it with little damage coming to the cloth or the kunai's position. She held it in her arms, close to her breasts, a last memento to her of who he was and what he had done for her and the world. Heat hit her head and Mei looked up to see the sunlight beaming down from the very center of the dome head as the lava began to fall away to the earth. Mei found it very iconic, the last spot her husband had occupied. The sun was illuminating. Maybe it was Kami, Even she was giving her condolences to the fallen hero. Naruto, your headband will be Rashi's one day. I will never forget this sacrifice, and I will never stop loving you. She felt a presence to her left, and found Ao looking at the kunai lodged into the ground. A questioning gaze was sent her way, and Mei allowed a sad smile to come to her tearful visage. It will be his memorial here. That kunai will serve as a reminder of the greatest sacrifice known to humankind done by one of its outcasts. Naruto saved the world, and this time, everyone will acknowledge him. Let's go, Ao. Mei began to walk away, taking all of her power not to turn around or else she would only break down again. Ao turned to walk with her, but something made him take one last look at the kunai. It was the three-pronged one, the one Naruto said had made his father famous. The boy had used it many times during his stay in Kirigakure, but for some reason, it seemed as if he had been saving them since he began to live in Yuzu. Feeling it was a fitting memorial for him, Ao turned around and began to follow Mei out, allowing his thoughts to drift to the Shodai. You were one of the greatest pains in the ass I have ever had, Naruto. You showed me up when you were a hunter in Kiri, then you go and worry me when you went out to get revenge for Root's attack. Then I let you lead me around as the Shodai Uzumaki, and I never said the one thing you probably deserved the most. You were one of the greatest men I have ever known, and I'm glad I got to meet you. 3 days after the final battle. Kirigakure. Memorial Stone. And to this stone I commemorate the name of our comrade that has fallen in battle, for sacrificing his life to save not only Konoha but our own. For if it were not for him, we would not be here today. Please, join me in one final moment of silence for this village's greatest product, the most hyperactive knucklehead ninja, my greatest student, Naruto Uzumaki. Kakashi announced to the hundreds of shinobi gathered before the memorial stone as Kakashi finished carving Naruto's name by kunai. Tsunade tearfully stepped forward and laid her necklace down next to the stone, a final reminder to the greatest hero of Konoha and the true owner of the necklace of the first Hokage. Kirigakure. Reiki's home. Roof. We all know of his sacrifice, and how it would be impossible for a lesser man to do so in such a line of duty. May we remember this, and work to make sure no one must do the same. Spoke to his gathered shinobi, including Killer Bee and Yujito, of the man that was the greatest friend that anyone could know. Sunagakure. Sand grave site. For that is our charge, as Kage, and as Jinchuuriki, to sacrifice ourselves, to protect those we love, and to not be forgotten as easily as the sand dunes disappear. Goodbye, Naruto Uzumaki. My brother. Gaara whispered to himself as he knelt down in the dunes of Sunagakure and picked up a little bit of sand that was near Naruto's honorary grave within Suna's greatest burial hall, reserved for the greatest heroes of the Suna people. May you find the peace that you found here in life, my friend. Uzumaki. Mountain of Fire. Shodai Memorial. And so we leave our great Shodai's burial with a few words from some of Naruto's greatest friends and comrades. Please come on up. The civilian priest allowed the 3 waiting shinobi to come up to the forefront of those gathered. As it was being held at the lip of a volcano, only a select audience was allowed. However, the pilgrimage to visit his memorial would be free to anyone. Chojuro went up first. His embarrassed blush was gone, and he walked on stage confidently. It was Naruto's death that woke the boy up, and Mei noticed that it gave him more confidence, yet a much more realistic view on the world around him. My name is Chojuro, and I was Naruto's teacher when he came to Kirigakure. I taught him many things, how to hold a blade, to use his chakra right, but the one thing he taught me that I haven't seemed to learn up until now was that you can say you will try hard, but that doesn't mean anything. True strength comes from the determination of accomplishing something, not just whispering words of encouragement to yourself, and I would like to thank Naruto for telling me that, because I think that he has made me stronger because of that, stronger than I could ever have made him. Applause was rampant as Chojuro bowed and stepped down from his place, allowing Ao to take his spot. When I first met Naruto, I won't lie, I thought he was a pain in the ass. A collective chuckle came from the crowd as Ao smiled at his memories of the boy. But, I soon realized that there was something else to him. Through all that hero and youth crap, I knew he was destined to do something great one day. I had hoped that it wouldn't come so soon, and that the loss wouldn't be so. Ao's head dipped down, and he almost couldn't say the word. Extreme, but I would still like to thank Naruto for his sacrifice, and for the attitude and life he has bestowed upon all of us. Thank you, Naruto. Applause was quick and quieted as Mei, the deceased's wife, took the stand. It surprised everyone when a smile came to her lips as she began to speak, contrary to the attitude everyone thought she would be in. Naruto was at first an enigma to me. He seemed so set on bringing back the Uzumaki when he came to Kiri, and yet it seemed as if he wouldn't have near the power to do so. I humored him at first, training him in all I knew and hoping that I was wrong, and it turned out I was. Naruto surpassed all my expectations, and all my walls and barriers until he held the key to my heart. She held her hand close to her chest to accentuate her point. It was then that I realized Naruto's true power came from those that believed in him, loved him, cherished him. He told me once something his sensei had told him: wherever someone thinks of you, that is where home is. And I now realize we are not the only ones mourning his death. It's because Naruto had a home in every country, every person, and every heart. And I still will love and cherish him, even after his sacrifice, because if I may still give him strength where he is, then maybe I can see him again someday. Thank you all for coming here. I know Naruto appreciates it. I do appreciate it. Mei began to step down from her place when a voice she thought not she would never hear began to speak. Her head swiveled to an opening in the crowd where they were gasping in awe. There he was, Naruto Uzumaki, bloodied and cut up, but standing tall and alive. He was holding his stomach in obvious pain, but no one could tell with the big smile on his face. Mei brought a hand to her mouth as tears began to fall from her eyes, not believing what she was seeing. Naruto chuckled a bit and limped forward, now standing right before his wife's slender figure. He brought a hand to her cheek and thought she felt a bit cold, and looked very pale. A concerned frown came to him as he realized his absence had done this to her, and he looked down in shame. I'm sorry, Mei. It took more chakra than I thought to get back. It took me all this time just to get here. It's my fault I made you worry. I'm so dash. A sudden kiss quieted him down completely. Mei had heard plenty enough from him. As soon as he uttered the first word, she hadn't cared whether he was an apparition or alive. Her love had reached him after all. It had given him the strength to come back. Naruto. Mei held him close, allowing herself to sink into his chest and spill her tears of happiness once again. Naruto sucked up the pain to smile and bring his arms around his wife. Everyone else finally awoke from their stupor and crowded around him, clapping him on the back, hugging him, kissing him, even ruffling his hair. Ao and Chojuro were shouting and smiling as loud as the others. Their Uzukage was home. Naruto didn't know who to keep his eyes on and just looked up into the sky, feeling the sunlight arrive and shine on his face, allowing his bright smile to reach the heavens. Home, this is where I belong. Epilogue. The moments a family share. Yuza Island. 4 years after Kiri's destruction. Uzumaki Estate. Naruto stood on his balcony, overlooking the entire Uzumaki estate within the great village of Kirigakure. It had been 4 long years since the destruction of Kirigakure and the defeat of Madara Uchiha, ushering the world into peace. He knew it would be a difficult road to maintain that peace for his children and theirs, but with an Uzumaki determination, he wasn't about to give up so easily. Today was a special day. To mark the eve of that final battle, all of the great nations gathered together and celebrated the victory. Yes, that was right. Kirigakure was finally accepted as the 6th elemental nation, and Naruto finally was acknowledged as a true Kage. It made the young man happy, but it also reminded him of the responsibility on his shoulders. Naruto was soon to be turning 22, a feat that many thought he wouldn't live to see in his dangerous life. His loving wife, Mei, just had her 34th birthday a few months ago, and it was a great time for everyone. Hearing a call from downstairs, Naruto went over to his door and called back. What was that, Mei? He pressed his ear to the door, trying to listen in and not zone out. Come on down, the party is going to start soon. I've already got Rashi and the kids ready to go. Mei's exasperated sigh came from downstairs as she pushed herself to get everyone ready. Yeah, Daddy, let's go. Naruto smiled as Rashi called out to him. His little boy had already reached the tender age of 4 and was speaking very well. I wonder how long before Yash and Yasuo will be as energetic as him. Yes, Naruto and Mei had 2 more children, twins around 8 months after the battle. It turned out Naruto's final farewell with Mei was more fruitful than anyone could have thought, and he soon felt the joys of being the father of multiple children. Yes, it was hard, but with a loving wife and a great place to call home, there was little for him to complain over. With a deep breath, Naruto left his room and headed downstairs to join his family. Since we are heading to the beach, I hope everyone brought their trunks. The first one he saw was Rashi. The little one now came up to his thighs and was wearing a small white t-shirt with orange trunks and blue sandals. It matched his father, except Naruto was wearing a black shirt with black sandals and red trunks. He smiled as his son came charging towards him, and knew he had to defend himself. Rashi's attack was too quick though, and he went down for the count on the wooden floor. His son kept beating his stomach lightly with his fists, both laughing hard enough to shake the house. Having had enough of it, Naruto launched his counterattack and tickled Rashi's sides, plenty enough for him to be the one on the floor this time. Did you really think you could beat me, huh? Naruto joked with his son, who couldn't stop to retort. He just kept laughing. Clacks on a tile flooring meant that Mei was coming out, and Naruto looked up to see his beautiful wife come out of the kitchen. She was smiling at them as Naruto wrestled his son off of the ground and held him up like he was a trophy. Sorry about that, honey, just had to catch me this little monster. Rashi giggled and tried to break Naruto's hold, but the blonde dad wouldn't budge. Mei giggled and walked forward, laying a kiss on both of their cheeks. You're both monsters if you asked me, but I love you more than anything. Now come on, I've got the twins all ready to go. From what I hear, the others have already started. Naruto nodded and watched as his wife walked into the other room in a blue robe. Underneath was no doubt her new bikini, a black and red combo piece. Well, you heard her, Rashi, let's get going. Naruto sat his son down and watched him run to the door, jumping up and down impatiently for his father to open it. Come on, Daddy! Let's leave Mommy in the dust! Naruto chuckled and walked forward, peeking into the kitchen's opening to see Mei walking with the twins holding either of her hands for themselves. Little Yash was sporting a cute one-piece swimsuit for herself. Pink sakura blossoms decorated its red color. Her blonde hair was let down freely, reaching a little past her shoulder blades. Her big green eyes locked onto her father, and she quickly rushed forward and tackled him, making Naruto huff in playful exasperation. Geez, Yash, you are getting too strong for me to handle. If you keep that up, I'll be done for. Naruto warned her as he took her hand in his own and watched as Mei neared the door with Yasuo, Yash's twin. He almost looked like a perfect clone of Naruto, just as Rashi did for Mei. The only difference was his little green eyes that seemed to sparkle everywhere he looked. Yash was surprisingly the more energetic of the two, always running around. It seemed Yasuo would be Naruto's opposite in his youth. He was very quiet and often thought about things longer than a 3-year-old should have to. Daddy, you're the big Uzukage. I can't hurt you, silly. Naruto chuckled as his daughter caught his joke and moved to the door to stand with Mei, observing his youngest son. Hey there, Yasuo, ready to go see Grandma Tsunade? She promised to get me a big bowl of Ichiraku ramen. Wanna share? His son's green eyes lit up quicker than anyone expected, and a rare smile crossed his lips, bringing one to his parents too. Naruto locked eyes with Mei and knew everything was perfectly fine. He had his wife and his 3 bundles of joy. There was nothing else he could want. Mei felt the same. Her smile punctuated her point as the two brought their faces closer and kissed again. Yash and Yasuo were soon left without a hand to hold as their parents brought their arms around each other and got a little too caught up with one another. Rashi took their hands and stood by the door, a big smile on his face. Yash was pouting about the loss of attention, and Yasuo had his big eyes following his father, trying to learn what he was doing. Feeling a tug on his shirt, Rashi looked down at Yasuo to see him point at their parents. What are mommy and daddy doing, Washi? The older brother smiled and, feeling a little mischievous, had a big smirk on his face very soon. That's what Grandpa Jiraiya calls laying the moves on a woman. Daddy does it all the time to mommy, then they kiss. He pretended to close in a kiss for Yasuo and the laughing little boy slapped him away. What Rashi didn't notice until it was too late was the killer intent coming from his parents who had heard every word. Oh Rashi-chan. He heard his mother call out in her too sweet tone, forcing him to slowly turn his head towards his parents. What did Grandpa Jiraiya say again? His father asked, and Rashi knew that the white-haired man was going to be in trouble when they arrived at the beach. Oh, I think this what Grandpa would call it when I blew it. I gotta go warn him. It wasn't anything, Mommy, Daddy, I swear. Just before Naruto could grab him, the blue-eyed boy disappeared and a little log fell on Naruto's foot. Damn, why did I teach him the substitution so soon? Why that little, mischievous munchkin? Naruto grunted out as he picked the log up and opened the front door, knowing his son was probably already halfway to the beach. I'll get the twins there, just save Jiraiya for me. I'll teach him to corrupt our little one's values so soon. She held up a fist to show her point, and Naruto's sweat dropped. His wife would never change. Uzumaki women, they are crazy. Alright, I'm off. I gotta go catch him before he steals all the ramen for himself. Mei giggled as Naruto disappeared in a yellow flash, leaving her to bring the two blonde twins to the beach herself. Let's go, Mommy! I wanna see Aunt Yujito again, she said she would teach me to tie up my hair. Yash was already at the gate to leave the home, making Mei wonder if she would have her father's natural speed. Alright honey, let's go. Come on Yasuo, Yasuo? Mei turned to look inside the house to not find him, only to hear Yash giggle at the gate. You didn't see him, Mommy? He already took off after Daddy, he didn't want him to get all the ramen to himself. Mei brought a hand to her forehead and sighed. Their family was crazy. A smile came to her though as she saw her giggling daughter and hurried on to get to the beach. This is just the way it should be. A couple of crazies. We are Uzumaki after all. And that concludes the final part of this story. Thank you for spending your time here at Ichiraku Ramen and listening all the way to the end. Your support helps keep these stories alive and allows the shinobi world to continue through new adventures and alternate timelines. If you enjoyed Uzumaki Clan's Rebirth, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss future stories. Once again, full credit goes to G3rman, the original writer of this story. If you would like to read the original version, you can find the link to the story in the description below. Let me know in the comments what story you would like to hear next. Until the next time, stay safe, and I'll see you again at Ichiraku Ramen.